I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents. And I'm frightened.
I always mic the mute. I always mute the mic and then I forget to unmute it. No music today because I am running late and couldn't find something that was copyright free. Number one. Number two, I am unbelievably tired. But I still wanted to read, so we gotta read. Number three, Wes is just sitting here looking sad. I was just playing tug of war with him, and now he's just laying on the ground, just huffing and puffing. Number four, don't trim your beard when you're tired, because I trimmed my beard when I was tired. And I was trimming it like the normal length that I do. And then I was exhausted, and so I clipped off the thing, thinking I'll trim around my mouth, because I hate when you have little hairs that go into your lips. And I went like this, and I go, oh, I gotta shave down here. And so I went zzz, and I shaved all down the side right here, where it was completely. So I have like stubble right here, and I tried to blend it in with everything, but it's just really short here. And then I just still have a stash. But sometimes I don't mind the look of like you have a longer stash and then a shorter beard. Oh well. You live and you learn. It'll grow back. Almost did that trimming your head hair last time. Ooh, that would have been awful. It was such like a tired accident. I just came in from shoveling. I was exhausted. I had woken up early, and then I just went, zzz. It was awful. But it's all right. Usually I do like 5 millimeters or 7 millimeters. But I did 1 millimeter. Or like the clear one. I don't know what it is called. Tolkien Rants, what's up? Everyone like the stream. Like the stream. I just got a little pop-up that I missed. Bummer. Oh, hold on. Interesting. Automated ads help you earn more while optimizing the experience for channel members. I don't know what that is, but I'll look it up later. I keep getting these YouTube pop-ups. The other day, it gave me a pop-up that was like, beware of your duplicated content. I say, what if my content is duplicated? It's just me talking in front of a camera the whole time. I guess that's you can kind of say that's duplicated. But anyway, how are you guys? How's the storm? How's the snow? How is other parts of the world? We just had a mass storm, maybe the biggest of the decade. And I'll show you guys a picture. This isn't like the actual snowfall, but this is Wes by a extra plowed. This is him. And you see the snow on either side of him. The snow was probably like 6 feet high at that one section, but we probably got like 1.5 feet of snow. These do go on for too long. But yeah, it was really a snow canyon. That's a good word for it, Sarah. It was a snow canyon, and Wes looked so cute. I was trying to get him to stay in between those two things while I took a picture, and he was being such a good boy. Get a little bit of snow, but just very cold. Okay, why can't my camera fix its white balance? It'll usually naturally fixes it, but I guess because I showed it a really white image, now it thinks that I am exceptionally white, which I am, but you'll have more rain tomorrow. Honestly, wow, you got snow and ice in the Memphis area. My sister lives in Nashville, and that's like the worst area in the country right now. Hopefully you're all right, Michael. I think Nashville and Memphis kind of like got really hammered. Used to the cold, but my chickens are miserable. I gotta change the white balance. Hold on. If I put this in front of the camera, will that change the white balance? No. What the heck is going on? How about this? Come on, focus on something. I don't want to be orange the whole stream, you know what I mean? White balance is what you're seeing right now where I look orange, but it's not naturally fixing itself, which is what it usually should do with my camera. Oh, there you go. It's kind of changing. There you go. Now we're normal. Ooh, now I look really pale. Ouch. All right, that's a little bit better. That's a bit more natural, but man, that's a little shocking sometimes. Look pale. Oh, you got the flu right now? That stinks. Ugh, that's awful. I need a blanket because my legs are a little cold, but I am kind of cozy. I have chai tea. I'm not a coffee drinker. Like, I don't love a coffee, to be honest, which, you know, do with that information what you will. But I do really love a good tea, like a good chai tea. And I traditionally haven't loved chai that much, but I've gotten into it lately. Because it's like a wintry kind of thing for me. You know, there's just a lot of good spices in there. It's very warm. So like on a snowy day like this, a little chai. Yeah, we gotta have tea with Austin. Anytime we are doing a British author, if we need to have tea. That's a must. So everyone, go get some chai. Go get a drink. Ginger tea is not bad. Ginger tea is every once in a while for me. Might have a vanilla chai. Told your answer. You're probably a coffee person, aren't you? Chai with too much spices. I'm not the biggest spice fan of tea. Usually, I like a good black tea. Like a lot of simple teas. Good light, something just light and herbal. Like a chamomile is great. But I typically haven't liked really spiced tea, but I'm really digging this right now. This is just a decaf chai, but I probably need a caffeinated because, man, this is a long few days, or a long 2 days. I'm exhausted. Drink ginger juice here in Benin. A Darjeeling every morning is for you. Ooh, love that. Apple and cinnamon is delicious. Red or green, not black. Red tea. Not a big black tea fan. Never even heard of red tea. I thought there was just white, black, and green. Actually, maybe I've heard of red tea. Chai tastes good when it has cardamom. Cardamom is so good. Red tea. Oh, okay. If that's what red tea is, then we all know what red tea is. It's caffeine free. Interesting. Matcha. I do not like matcha, June. Sorry. Matcha is a no for me. I mean, if you like drinking dirt and grass, then go ahead. But you know. Hey TM, what's up? Not that late. We're just chatting about tea and drinks, pretty much. So, you know. Maybe this is bad, but I don't like a gray or like a Earl Grey tea or like a Lady Grey tea. Not the biggest fan of a gray tea. Wow, you grow or forage all your own tea herbs? That's incredible. What is Mexican hot chocolate? Is Mexican hot chocolate like you put a little cayenne pepper in there? I'm kind of weird with you on lavender. Lavender is too overpowering to me. Wait, my audio is choppy? Can you guys hear my audio? Is my audio choppy or is that just for Michael? I just haven't had a good matcha. All right, maybe. Cocoa with cinnamon. Audio is fine. Audio is fine. Michael, it might just be you. Just refresh. I usually love all the herbs. Aztec type hot chocolate is the best. Gray tea tastes like soap. Honestly, kind of valid. I don't love gray tea. You know what I heard the other day? I think I told you guys this. Maybe I didn't. I was telling someone this. To put cinnamon in your coffee grounds. I think I've told someone that. I forgot who I told that. Maybe I told it to you, to another person. I was like, that's kind of a great idea. A little cinnamon in your coffee grounds so your coffee tastes a little cinnamony. That's the only way that I would drink coffee, because I think coffee is not a good drink. You guys were like, no. Anything to make coffee taste better. I don't know. I don't remember last time I had a coffee. Not a big coffee drinker, as you guys can tell. Your friend made tea for me herself. All the spices. Ooh, man. I do like a smoky tea. Cinnamon or cardamom. Cardamom with some coffee grains. That's it. All milk coffee with honey. Yeah, before you brew. Yeah, for sure. Michael is the most sophisticated of all us. Likes both coffee and tea. Espresso, yeah. Cappuccino. Flat white, yeah. One of the YouTube cabin builders you watch does that. Cinnamon in his coffee, but he also adds maple syrup. That's what I'm talking about. I love that's my comfort on YouTube right now. It's been for the past like 2 years. But people who like have little cabins and they're building little cabins out in the woods, like just channels that do that. That's what I want ultimately. I want to do that and then also talk about books. And if I could, then I'll be set. That's my life is achieved. I actually almost did that. Guys, crazy story before we start to read. We'll start to read in 5 minutes. It's 4:44 right now. We'll start at 4:50. I just have to tell you a story. This would have fit in so good. This is what I wanted to do. I found a house about an hour north of me in a podunk town called Poughkeepsie, New York. Anybody know Poughkeepsie, New York? Not a great town. Sorry if you're from there. I doubt anybody of the 91 people watching this is from Poughkeepsie. But maybe one of you is from upstate New York somewhere. Like a used to be nice town. Your cousins live there, know it. A used to be nice town that's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, but it's not like the worst town, but it's not great. But I found a house in the historic district of that town a few years ago, 2 years ago to be exact. That was $230,000. And I went to go see it, which is absurdly inexpensive in this area. That is like ridiculously inexpensive. You only went to Poughkeepsie to take the train to the city. Yeah, that's what most people do. It's a famous town, Poughkeepsie. I didn't even know it was a famous town. But when this house was in the historic district, it's the biggest regret of my life that I didn't get this. I just drove by it the other day actually because I was up there. It was a 20-room mini mansion for $230,000. And it was a Victorian house. Stunning house that had all the features of this house were incredible. The one thing that kind of sold me on the house before I ended up not getting it, because it needed probably needed like $1 million of work. I'm not even joking. It was a beautiful Victorian house, but the whole thing was in such disrepair. And I wanted to start like a YouTube channel fixing that up, because one of my favorite YouTubers right now is Martin Doliard. I forget I don't know what his last name is. It's a Dutch last name, but he's great. He has a little cabin in the Italian, somewhere in Italy, like not the Italian Alps, but somewhere in Italy. And he just fixes it up every single week. And this house had a main staircase. The staircase was beautiful. It was like one of those where like the banister is like super thick and like it might be the Dolomites. Maybe it's Dolomites. But it's this one, it had this thick staircase that went up, and then it had a servant's kitchen on the side, which is, I love that. Like, it's like one of my favorite features in houses, like a little servant's kitchen. And this servant's kitchen had a staircase, a hidden staircase that met with the main staircase. So I wanted to like slowly renovate this and then turn it into an Airbnb, but it was an historic district, and it was just, if you have a house in a historic district, it just becomes a mess because you have to get everything approved. But that would have been my dream. And so I would have been reading Pride and Prejudice in a Victorian mini mansion while you guys come hang out and go rent an Airbnb from me. That would have been like the dream. How cool would that have been? I know, yeah. And June, that's the same thing in my area too. You can't really find a house like that. Like a house like that would probably, in Poughkeepsie, a nice house like that would have been like $2 million. I just didn't have the cash to actually put into that house. So I would have been house poor. But it was so cool. And I think about it almost every day. Duncombe House Channel is wonderful. One of these days I'm going to find a house and you guys are all of a sudden just going to randomly come across the channel and you'll be like, oh, that's the guy that reads Pride and Prejudice. Or that's the guy that reads classics that has a whole new channel. He's fixing up a house. That's my dream. Just read books and fix up houses. You'll have a cabin on Lake St. Catherine available for sale soonish. Ooh. Wait. Where's Lake St. Catherine? Is that in Georgia? Send me the house. For a channel like that, I don't think I would actually cross promote. I would just completely start from scratch. I'm going to have as many channels as I can. I have too many channels right now. Wait, Southern Vermont for real? Dude, Kendrick, send me that. I would love to get that house. A little cabin. If it's a cabin on the lake, I'm in. Just depends on the price, you know. But send me that stuff. What? Grandfather built it. Oh my gosh. I'm so in right now. It's got like a history to it. This sounds great. I almost guys, we're talking about housing a lot before we read Pride and Prejudice. I almost bought a house up by me in the great country of New Jersey. That was a stone cottage that had no electrical, no plumbing, no HVAC, and no well, and no septic. And I almost bought that because it was in such a cool location, and it was fully stone. Actually, not fully stone, like 85% stone. Ah, it would have been the best. It would have been so cool. Yeah, you could do a first-time renovation channel. That's what I'm talking about. Michael, a member of the Hot Tamales on First Time Classics and on First Timers Lord of the Rings. Wow, incredible. Thank you. Welcome to the Hot Tamales. Vermont is one of the coolest states to be. Let's be honest. Vermont is like legitimately one of the coolest states in the country. Yeah. You're glad for the choices that were not made? How cool would that have been, though? Oh, that would have been my dream. Man, your husband's doing a Reno and a Victorian. Oh, I want to see that. That sounds so fun. I love a good Reno. Also, maybe we got to start another thread in the Discord. By the way, if you guys aren't in the Discord, send stuff to me in the Discord. I'm going to send you guys a link because I would love to see what like YouTube channels you guys follow with like renovations, all that kind of stuff. Man, that's so sweet. I love that. That's fantastic. One day we'll get there, and one day you guys will find up a channel with me fixing up a house. One day, but that is not this day. This day we fight. This day we read. All right, everyone, like the stream because we're gonna get into Pride and Prejudice, and we are in chapter 51. But we're gonna stop at 55. Some of you guys were saying stopping at 55. Some of these chapters. 54. Do we stop at 55 or stop at 56? Stop after 55. Okay. Jonathan, I saw you in the comments. You were like, just keep going to 56. All right. We'll go to 50 to the end of 56, which is 30 pages. So we'd have a fair amount of reading. You might be here for a while. We're going to stop right before 56. Or right after 55. Between 55 and 56. We won't read 56. We'll do 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, and 60. We'll finish the book. Maybe like Wednesday or something like that. And then there's probably going to be like 2 weeks of videos that come out still till then. All right, here we go. Let me get one more swig of chai to lube up the vocal cords. And here we go, chapter 51. Stop when there's nothing left to read. Wow, Lana, you came at the perfect time because I've just been chatting right before that. I know, we're going to start Wuthering Heights right on Valentine's Day. Just a tip to support today's crash out. Oh no, am I going to crash out today? No. All right, here we go. We'll see if there's a crash out. This is chapter 51. I'm going to mute myself real quick so I can clear my throat. Okay, we're good. Yeah, you guys made it just on time. Sorry, I have a little splinter in my finger that's just annoying me. It's like a little skin hanging off. It's gross. All right, chapter 51. Their sister's wedding day arrived. Huh. Interesting. And, excuse me, Jane and Elizabeth felt for her probably more than she felt for herself. Lydia doesn't know what she's getting herself into. Which is sad because I feel like she's going to have a hard life. The carriage was sent to meet them at blank, and they were to return in it by dinner time. Their arrival was dreaded by the elder Miss Bennets, and Jane more especially, who gave Lydia the feelings which would have attended herself had she been the culprit. Was wretched in the thought of what her sister must endure. They came. The family were assembled in the breakfast room. Now, all my random thoughts every once in a while pop in my head. I haven't made a video about this yet, but I think I might make a video about this, is comparing why, I feel like I'm inconsistent a lot on different views that I have of certain things because my opinions are always in flux about characters. Why am I okay with I know why I'm okay with it. Why am I okay with Charlotte marrying Collins, and I say good for Charlotte for doing this, rather than I am for Lydia marrying Wickham? The answer is because Charlotte's smarter than Wickham and because she knows what she's doing. But Lydia, in her idiotic, dumb way, still has something. I don't know what Lydia has. Because I think that both Collins and Lydia are... Yeah, that's true. That's true. Charlotte's a grown-up. She knows what she's doing. Lydia is a child. Just turned 16. Yeah, there you go. There's the answer for that question. Cassie, is interesting because I actually do think that he is a scumbag. I feel like that's maybe not a niche opinion, because I think a lot of you guys actually think that Collins is kind of like a scummy. Maybe not as much of a scumbag as I do. But someone who's in working at a church like that, just he shouldn't be working at a church. He's not a great guy to me. I don't like him at all. We don't like Collins here. All right, anyway, I'm going to keep reading. Sorry, that was an immediate break. They came. The family were assembled in the breakfast room to receive them. Smiles decked the face of Mrs. Bennet as the carriage drove up to the door. Her husband looked impenetrably grave. Her daughters alarmed, anxious, uneasy. Lydia's voice was heard in the vestibule. The door was thrown open, and she ran into the room. Her mother stepped forwards, embraced her, and welcomed her with rapture, gave her hands gave her hand with an affectionate smile to Wickham, who followed his lady and wished them both joy, with an alacrity which showed no doubt of their happiness. Their reception from Mr. Bennet, to whom they then turned, was not quite so cordial. His countenance rather gained in austerity, and he scarcely opened his lips. The easy assurance of the young couple, indeed, was enough to provoke him. Elizabeth was disgusted, and even Miss Bennet was shocked. Lydia was Lydia still, untamed, unabashed, wild, noisy, and fearless. She turned from sister to sister, demanding their congratulations. And at length, when they all sat down, looked eagerly around the room, took notice of some little alteration in it, and observed with a laugh that it was a great while since she had been there. She is like one of those college kids that comes home for like Christmas or Thanksgiving, who's like, oh my gosh, everything has changed so much. Nothing's really the same. Honestly, it's a great point. It is the Church of England, so it's a great point. Oh, I need some chapstick. Lydia is just a piece of work. I wonder if Lydia was like 21. I wonder the debate about what we were just talking about. Her marrying Collins versus Charlotte marrying. Like if she was an adult, would there be more debate in the book about that? I think yeah, but sorry if you're from the Church of England. I feel like the Church of England is just so enmeshed with confusion. It's so mixed with the state that it's just tricky to understand. I like that she's demanding their congratulations. When at length they all sat down, looked eagerly around the room, took notice of some little alteration, and observed with a laugh, that was a great while since she had been there. Wickham was not at all more distressed than herself, but his manners were always so pleasing, that had his character and his marriage been exactly what they ought, his smiles and easy address, while he claimed their relationship, would have delighted them all. Elizabeth had not before believed him quite equal to such assurance, but she sat down, resolving within herself to draw no limits in future of the impudence of an impudent man. She blushed, and Jane blushed, but the cheeks of the two who caused their confusion suffered no variation of color. There was no want of discourse. The bride and her mother could neither of them talk fast enough, and Wickham, who happened to sit near Elizabeth, began inquiring after his acquaintance in that neighborhood, with a good-humored ease, which she felt very unable to equal in her replies. They seemed each of them to have the happiest memories in the world. Nothing of the past was recollected with pain, and Lydia led voluntarily to subjects which her sisters would not have alluded to for the world. This is so interesting. Only think of it's being 3 months, she cried, since I went away. It seems but a fortnight, I declare. And yet there have been things enough happened in the time. It's a weird sentence. Good gracious. When I went away, I am sure I had no more idea of being married till I came back again. Though I thought it would be very good fun if I was. Her father lifted up his eyes. Jane was distressed. Elizabeth looked expressively at Lydia, but she, who never heard or saw anything of which she chose to be insensible, gaily continued, "Oh, Mamma, do the people hereabouts know I am married today? I was afraid they might not. And we overtook William Golding in his curricle, so I was determined he should know it. And so I let down the side glass next to him and took off my glove and let my hand just rest upon the window frame so that he might see the ring. And then I borrowed, and then I bowed and smiled like anything. Oh my gosh, she is insufferable. Elizabeth could bear it no longer. She got up and ran out of the room and returned no more, till she heard them passing through the hall to the dining parlor. She then joined them soon enough to see Lydia, with anxious parade, walk up to her mother's right hand, and heard her say to her eldest sister, "Ah, Jane, I take your place now. You must go lower because I am a married woman." Oh my gosh. She... The crash out begins. It was not supposed to be that time. It was not to be supposed that time would give Lydia that embarrassment from which she had been so wholly free at first. Her ease and good spirits increased. She longed to see Mrs. Phillips, the Lucases, and all their other neighbors, and to hear herself called Mrs. Wickham by each of them. And in the meantime, she went after dinner to show her ring and boast of being married to Mrs. Hill and the two housemaids. "Well, Mamma," she said, when they were all returned to the breakfast room, "and what do you think of my husband? Is he not a charming man? I am sure my sisters must all envy me. I only hope they may have half my good luck. They must all go to Brighton. That is the place to get husbands. What a pity it is, Mamma, we did not all go." "Very true, and if I had my will, we should. But my dear Lydia, I don't like your going off such a way. Must it be so?" "Oh Lord, yes, there is nothing in that. I shall like it of all things. You and Papa and my sisters must come down and see us. We shall be at Newcastle all the winter, and I dare say there will be some balls, and I will take care to get good partners for them all." "I shouldn't like it beyond anything," said her mother. "And then when you go away, you may leave one or two of my sisters behind you, and I dare say I shall get husbands for them before the winter is over." Now, yeah, there's an interesting thing because I keep thinking about this section, the very beginning, because I remember seeing an Ellie Dashwood video or a short about it, where when Mrs. Bennet says, or when Mr. Bennet praises Mrs. Bennet for her looks in the beginning, say that, "Oh, all the guys are going to like you at the ball." And she goes, "Oh no, it's not good for a mother to, take the beauty when her daughters are really there." Lydia is the opposite now. She's like crashing down, and she is going to be that person at the ball who outshines her daughters. And she's going to like have a real hard time not being the center of attention. At the very least, Mrs. Bennet stepped aside and let her daughters be desirable at balls. Mrs. Bennet is the worst. Cannot stand her. She's a terrible mother. She did one thing right. Which maybe that's not even right. Maybe there's something wrong about that. She did learn at the knee from her mother. Yeah, faux modesty. Interesting. Tolkien Rants, not a fan of Ellie Dashwood. Interesting. Dr. Octavia Cox. I've seen one of her videos, I think one of her shorts or something like that, about roasting Mr. Bennet. She is very much on a mission to say that Mr. Bennet is as bad as Mrs., which I like. I appreciate that. I like deep dives like that. All right, where am I? "I thank you for my share of the favor," said Elizabeth, "but I do not particularly like your way of getting husbands." Ooh, a little passive-aggressive there, Lizzie. "Their visitors were not to remain above 10 days with them. Mr. Wickham had received his commission before he left London, and he was to join his regiment at the end of a fortnight. No one but Mrs. Bennet regretted their stay would be so short, and she made the most of the time by visiting about with her daughter and having very frequent parties at home. These parties were acceptable to all. To avoid a family circle was even more desirable to such as did think than such as did not. Wickham's affection for Lydia was just what Elizabeth had expected to find it, not equal to Lydia's for him. She had scarcely needed her present observation to be satisfied, from the reason of things, that their elopement had been brought on by the strength of her love rather than by his, and she would have wondered why, without violently caring for her, he chose to elope with her at all, had she not felt certain that his flight was rendered necessary by distress of circumstances. And if that were the case, he was not the young man to resist an opportunity of having a companion. Lydia was exceedingly fond of him. What is she? What is it like a 16-year-old see? And is this just charm? She's wooed by his charm. Like, what is she attracted to in him? I guess it's just charm. I guess that's what like a groomer does. Yeah, she just got rizzed up. Yeah, the whole village does kind of. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Yeah, the whole village does like Wickham. So none of us like Wickham here, but the whole village does like Wickham. Yeah, that's a great point. At 16, it's easy to be in love because you just feel wanted. Like running away with someone, like you're just like vulnerable and you're just like all in on that person. Although I'm interested. Yeah. I'm interested to see how they depict Lydia in the BBC and the movie. We'll see. I think maybe there's a point in my head where I think I'm just conflating things. It's funny. There's a lot of Hunger Games characters that are in Pride and Prejudice. What's this girl's name? The girl in the thumbnail. That's Lydia, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's Lydia. What's her name in Hunger Games? Because she's crazy in Hunger Games. Joanne, that's it. And so in my head, I'm conflating Joanne and Lydia right now, and I'm thinking, oh, Lydia is really in control of things. Yeah, and Mr. Bennett's President Snow too. That's right. We're doing a little cross right now. Imagine the Hunger Games, but Pride and Prejudice style. Someone needs to do a video on that. The Hunger Games. Who would win in the Hunger Games if it took place in Pride and Prejudice? Tolkien rants, get on that. All right, here we go. Let's keep going. Let's keep reading. Where are we? Lydia was exceedingly fond of him. He was her dear Wickham on every occasion. No one was to be put in competition with him. He did everything best in the world, and she was sure he would kill more birds on the 1st of September than anybody else in the country. That's actually hilarious. She's like, he's the best hunter. He's just going to do everything right. Lizzie, I never gave you an account of my wedding. Or on the morning soon after her arrival, as she was sitting with her 2 eldest sisters, she said to Elizabeth, Lizzie, I never gave you an account of my wedding, I believe. You were not by when I told Mama and the others all about it. Are not you curious to hear how it was managed? No, really, replied Elizabeth. I think there cannot be too little said on the subject. La, you are so strange. But I must tell you how it went off. We were married, at St. Clement's because Wickham's lodgings were in that parish. And it was settled that Wickham's lodgings were in that parish. Did parishes have like hostels attached to them? You had to get married in your own parish. Interesting. Parishes of borders. Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So like a parish is like over a city or something like that. Okay. Parish like a town. Noted. Okay. Because Wickham's lodgings were in that parish, and it was settled that we should all be there by 11 o'clock. My uncle and aunt and I were to go together, and the others were to meet us at the church. Well, Monday morning came, and I was in such a fuss. I was so afraid, that something would happen to put it off. And then I should have gone quite distracted. And there was my aunt. All the time I was dressing, preaching and talking away as if she was reading a sermon. However, I did not hear above 1 word in 10, for I was thinking, you may suppose, of my dear Wickham. I longed to know whether he would be married in his blue coat. Oh, gosh. Well, and we breakfast at 10. And so we breakfast at 10 as usual. I thought it would never be over, for by the by, you are to understand that my uncle and aunt were horrid, unpleasant all the time I was with them. If you'll believe me, I did not once put my foot out of the doors, though I was there for a fortnight. Not one party or scheme or anything. To be sure, London was rather thin, but however, the little theatre was open. Well, and so just as the carriage came to the door, my uncle was called away upon business to get that horrid man, Mr. Stone. And then, when once they get together, there's no end of it. Well, I was so frightened I did not know what to do, for my uncle was to give me away. And if we were beyond that hour, we could not be married all day. But luckily, he came back again in 10 minutes' time. And then we all set out. However, I recollected afterward that if he had been prevented going, the wedding need not have been put off, for Mr. Darcy might have done as well. Oh, all right. Okay, I feel like there was a lot in that paragraph. Hold on, who is Mr. Stone again? Who's Mr. Stone? Their lawyer. Okay. I'm trying to piece things together. Like, okay, so he's going and talking to the lawyer. Like this is really interesting perspective. Like this is, like I do love stories like this that are like from kids' perspectives. This is like, To Kill a Mockingbird. What makes To Kill a Mockingbird so good? But imagine a story told from a perspective of Lydia's where you have to fill in all the gaps. Like, really, Mr. Gardner is Emma Stone's husband. Really, Mr. Gardner is talking to the lawyer, trying to deal out, like, what the marriage is going to look like and, like, legally whether this can work or not. And, like, all the whole contract. And she's just like, oh, this man is horrid. And in the background, I'm, like, piecing things together in my mind. Is Mr. Gardner trying to stop this? What's he trying to really do? Like, what's going on here? But now we got a Mr. Darcy drop. However, I recollected afterward that if he had been prevented going, the wedding need not be put off. For Mr. Darcy might have done as well. Mr. Darcy might have given her away? How? Is this like a benefactor kind of thing? This is probably a read and find out moment, I'm sure. Mr. Darcy, repeated Elizabeth in utter amazement. Oh, yes, he was to come there with Wickham, But, gracious me, I quite forgot. I ought not to have said a word about it. I promised them so faithfully. What will Wickham say? It was to be such a secret. Okay. Dang. Okay, hold on. I gotta find something real quick because I wanna start implementing this into the stream. You know this meme? I need to start putting this in here. Every single time we have like a jaw drop moment, I need to start throwing that in there. You know the meme where Andy Dwyer looks at the camera and he's like, we need that. Because this feels like that. This is crazy. What was going on there? Oh, Michael, you need to check out the murder mystery sequel to Pride and Prejudice that P.D. James wrote, Death Comes to Pemberley. It's also been made into a BBC miniseries? Interesting. Huh. All right. We'll check that out. Yeah, I'm excited to read some of this stuff. I think for the next, so in between when we will probably do Wuthering Heights almost immediately, but in between like some of the videos, when the videos actually start up, we're going to do some of the series stuff. So it could be fun to check that out. P.D. James wrote Death Comes to Pemberley. Interesting. A murder mystery sequel. I feel like my mom would love that. I should check the Discord. What did you put in the Discord? John be like, Nemo, come on. Stop taking screenshots. You can make that into a emoji on Discord, or we could even do that on the Nemo. I'm gonna save that and make that an emoji on the actual YouTube channel because you can do that apparently. It's one of the Lord of the Rings live reads. It works. I'm wearing the same thing. That's embarrassing. I pretty much have the same 5 sweatshirts that I wear on rotation. It's an emoji in the Discord. Love that. You don't want to go. I didn't even notice. All right. This is crazy. Let me finish this chapter and then we'll chat because I have a lot to chat about. If it was to be a secret, said Jane, say not another word on the subject. Jane, Jane, come on. She's so right. But at this moment, Jane, shut up. You may depend upon my seeking no further. Oh, certainly, said Elizabeth, though burning with curiosity. We will ask you no questions. Thank you, said Lydia, for if you did, I should certainly tell you all, and then Wickham would be angry. Oh, such encouragement to ask. On such encouragement to ask, Elizabeth was forced to put it out of her power by running away. Oh, come on. But to live in ignorance on such a point was impossible, or at least it was impossible to find or to not try for information. Mr. Darcy had been at her sister's wedding. It was exactly a scene, and exactly among people where he had apparently least to do, and least temptation to go. Conjectures as to the meaning of it, rapid and wild, hurried into her brain, but she was satisfied with none. Those that best pleased her, as placing his conduct in the noblest light, seemed most improbable. She could not bear such suspense. Now that's interesting because she still thinks negatively of him. And maybe not negatively, but not positively of him. In some deep down way, her prejudice is still affecting her here. She's thinking of the most noble ways possible, which, I mean, I guess what's the most noble way possible that she could be thinking? That he's paying off all the family, all the debts of this man, that he's essentially putting him back into the good graces. And he's like, hey, I'm going to be at your wedding to make sure this happens so that all the other girls don't go in disrepute in the family. He would do that. If her prejudice wasn't blinding her, she would see that he would do that, which I think is that's kind of the case. I don't know what she's thinking, but I know in my head, I'm thinking that he's probably paid off the debt, paid off his gambling debt. And then he's probably promised him $5,000, just a lump sum, and says, marry her, I'll pay you this, and that's the end of it. That's really true. That's a great point. It is a huge act for Darcy. So I guess maybe Lizzie just has not seen that kind of benevolence ever. I mean, the gardeners are right in front of her face. So yes, They braised you. But not really, but you know what I mean. She's not Jane enough to think that. Jane would think. Would Jane think that someone was capable of being that kind to her? I don't think so. Jane would take it with suspicion to some extent. She couldn't ask Darcy for this and would not expect it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is very true. All right, let me finish this chapter. She could not bear such suspense, and hastily seizing a sheet of paper, wrote a short letter to her aunt to request an explanation of what Lydia had dropped, if it were compatible with the secrecy which had been intended. You may readily comprehend, she added, what my curiosity must be to know how a person unconnected with any of us, and comparatively speaking with a stranger to our family, should have been amongst you at such a time. Pray write instantly and let me understand it, unless it is, for very cogent reasons, to remain in the secret which Lydia seems to think necessary, and then I must endeavor to be satisfied with ignorance. Not that I shall, though, she added to herself, as she finished the letter. And my dear aunt, if you do not tell me in an honorable manner, I shall certainly be reduced to tricks and statements, stratagems to find out. Jane's delicate sense of honor would not allow her to speak to Elizabeth privately of what Lydia had let fall. Elizabeth was glad of it, till it appeared whether her inquiries would have received any satisfaction. She had rather be without a confidant. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Now that's kind of interesting. That they wouldn't want to talk about this together. My chai is cold now. All right. Ooh, chapter 52 is a long one. Yeah, Jane doesn't expect compliments like that. I guess you're true. I guess that's right. Huh. All right, chapter 52. Elizabeth had the satisfaction of receiving an answer to her letter as soon as she possibly could. She was no sooner in possession of it than, hurrying into the little copse where she was least likely to be interrupted, she sat down on one of the benches and prepared to be happy, for the length of the letter convinced her that it did not contain a denial. Let's go. Let's figure out what's going on. I'm so pumped. My dear niece, I have just received your letter. I shall devote this whole morning to answering it, as I foresee that a little writing will not comprise what I have to tell you. I confess myself surprised by your application. I did not expect it from you. Do not think me angry, however, for I only mean to let you know that I had not imagined such inquiries to be necessary on your side. If you do not choose to understand me, forgive my impertinence. Your uncle is as much surprised as I am, and nothing but the belief of your being a party concerned would have allowed him to act as he had done. But if you are really innocent and ignorant, I must be more explicit. Huh? What's she saying there? Oh, she thought... Cute. Oh, dang. All right, girl. Here we go. Your uncle is as surprised as I am, and nothing but the belief of your being a party concern would have allowed him to act as he had done. But if you are really innocent and ignorant, I must be more explicit. On the very day of my coming home from Longbourn, your uncle had a most unexpected visitor. Mr. Darcy called. And was shut up with him several hours. It was all over before I arrived, so my curiosity was not so dreadfully racked as yours seems to have been. He came to tell Mr. Gardner that he had found out where your sister and Mr. Wickham were, and that he had seen and talked with them both. Wickham repeatedly, Lydia once. From what I can collect, he left Derbyshire only one day after ourselves, and came to town with the resolution of hunting for them. What a guy! The motive professed was his conviction of its being owing to himself that Wickham's worthlessness had not been so well known as to make it possible for any young woman of character to love or confide in him. Wait, the motive professed was a conviction of its being owed to himself that Wickham's worthlessness had not been so well known as to make it impossible for any young woman of character to love or confide in him. He generously imputed the whole of his mistaken pride and confessed that he had before thought it beneath him to lay his private actions open to the world. His character was to speak for itself. He called it, therefore, his duty to step forward and endeavor to remedy an evil which had been brought on by himself. If he had another motive, I am sure it would never disgrace him. Hold on. I need to reread this. I'm missing something. From what I can collect, he left Derbyshire only one day after ourselves, and came to town with the resolution of hunting for them. The motive professed was his conviction of its being owing to himself that Wickham's worthlessness had not been so well known as to make it impossible for any young woman of character to love or confide in him. Okay. He generously imputed the whole of his mistaken pride and confessed that he had before thought it beneath him to lay his private actions open to the world. Oh, his character was to speak for itself. He called it therefore his duty he called it his duty to step forward and endeavor to remedy an evil which had been brought on by himself. That is so interesting now. So he's going, I should have brought this out earlier because now people's lives are messed up. So Darcy's kind of doing this because he feels, yes, because he likes Lizzie, but because he also feels guilty himself that he didn't tell people about Wickham. Interesting. Oh, interesting. That's a great point, Jonathan. That's what he says. So he's saying the reason is because he needs to mess with the layers of this. This is great. I love this. This is fantastic so far. I hope this letter is the entire chapter, which kind of looks like it is. Let's go. I love a Jane Austen letter. Please give me all the Jane Austen letters. Oh, she knows how to write a letter. This must have been so fun writing this letter. Like, she must have really gotten so immersed in that character. He called it, therefore, his duty to step forward and endeavor to remedy an evil which would be brought on by himself. If he had another motive, I am sure it would never disgrace him. He had been some days in town before he was able to discover them, but he had something to direct his search, which was more than we did. And the consciousness of this was another reason for his resolving to follow us. There is a lady, it seems, a Mrs. Youngie, who was some time ago governess to Miss Darcy, and was dismissed from her charge on some cause of disapprobation, though he did not say what. She then took a large house in Edward Street, and has since maintained herself by letting lodgings. This Miss Young was, he knew, intimately acquainted with Wickham, and he went to her for intelligence of him as soon as he got to town. But it was 2 or 3 days before he can get from her what he wanted. She would not betray her trust, I suppose, without bribery and corruption, for she really did know where her friend was to be found. I like Mrs. Young less and less. Wickham indeed had gone to her on their first arrival in London, and she had been able to receive them into her house. They would have taken up their abode with her. You can't tell me you almost screwed up. You almost had Wickham running away with Georgiana, and you all of a sudden say, oh no, I'm now going to take a bribe from the very brother of the girl I almost screwed her whole life over. How low do you have to be? That's absurd. Ugh. At length, however, our kind friend procured the wished-for direction. They were in Blank Street. He saw Wickham, and afterward insisted on seeing Lydia. His first object with her, he acknowledged, had been to persuade her to quit her present disgraceful situation and return to her friend as soon as they could be prevailed on to receive her offering his assistance, as far as it would go. But he found Lydia absolutely resolved on remaining where she was. She cared for none of her friends. She wanted no help of his. She would not hear of leaving Wickham. Darcy, what a guy. Darcy trying his hardest to be like, this guy is a scumbag. She was sure that they would be married sometime or other, and it did not much signify when. Since they were her feelings, it only remained, he thought, to secure and expedite a marriage which in his very first conversation with Wickham he easily learnt had never been his design. He confessed himself obliged to leave the regiment on account of some debts of honor, which were very pressing, and scrupled not to lay the ill consequence of Lydia's flight on her own folly alone. He meant to resign his commission immediately, and as to the future situation, he can conjecture very little about it. He must go somewhere, but he did not know where, and he knew he should have nothing to live on. Mr. Darcy asked him why he had not married your sister at once. Though Mr. Bennet was not imagined to be very rich, he would have been able to do something for him, and his situation must have been benefited by marriage. But he found in reply to this question that Wickham still cherished the hope for more effectually making his fortune by marriage in some other country. There's a footnote for country. Does that mean county? Some other... 27. In some other country, another part of England, the phrase does not mean that Wickham intended to go abroad. Okay. Under such circumstances, however, he was not likely to be proof against the temptation of immediate relief. They met several times, for there was much to be discussed. Wickham, of course, wanted more than he could get, but at length was reduced to be reasonable. Everything being settled between them, Mr. Darcy's next step was to make your uncle acquainted with it. And he first called in Gracechurch Street the evening before I came home. But Mr. Gardiner could not have been seen, and Mr. Darcy found, on further enquiry, that your father was still with him, but would quit town the next morning. He did not judge your father to be a person whom he could so properly consult as your uncle. Darcy just... love this guy. Just love this guy. Fitz Luna, thanks for the 7 Canadians. There's Dadsy. Dadsy was going to put his own reputation on the line to help this damaged girl get away from Wickham. Love this guy. Guys, I've loved him the whole time. He's been so great. I love him so much. He did not judge your father to be a person to whom he could so properly consult as your uncle, and therefore readily postponed seeing him till after the departure of the former. He did not leave his name. Until the next day, it was only then that a gentleman had called on business. On Saturday he came again. Your father was gone. Your uncle at home, and, as I said before, they had a great deal of talk together. They met again on Sunday, and then I saw him too. It was not all settled before Monday. As soon as it was, the express was sent off to Longbourn, but our visitor was very obstinate. I fancy, Lizzie, that obstinacy is the real defect of his character after all. Ha ha! What a good line! He has been accused of many faults at different times, but this is the true one. Nothing was to be done that he did not do himself, though I am sure, and I do not speak it to be thanked, therefore say nothing about it. Your uncle would most readily have settled the whole. They battled it together for a long time, which is more than either of the gentleman or the lady concerned in it deserved. But at last your uncle was forced to yield, and instead of being allowed to be of use to his niece, was forced to put up with only having the probable credit of it, which went sorely against the grain. These are the greatest people ever. Darcy and Mr. Gardner. Honestly, I kind of feel like there's a point where Darcy understands that this is the real person who raised Lizzie. And he's like, that's where she gets it from. Man, I love them. Yeah, Mrs. Gardner is so good in this letter. She's so excellent. And I really believe your letter this morning gave him great pleasure because it required an explanation that would rob him of his borrowed feathers and gave the praise where it was due. But Lizzie, this must go no farther than yourself, or Jane at most. You know pretty well, I suppose, what has been done for the young people. His debts are to be paid, amounting, I believe, to considerably more than £1,000. Another 1,000 in addition to her own settled upon her, and his commission purchased. The reason why all this was to be done by him alone was such as I have given above. It was owing to him, to his reserve and want of proper consideration, that Wickham's character had been so misunderstood, and consequently that he had been received and noticed as he was. Perhaps there was some truth in this, though I doubt whether his reserve, or anybody's reserve, can be answerable for the event. But in spite of all this fine talking, my dear Lizzie, you may rest perfectly assured that your uncle would never have yielded if we had not given him credit for another interest in the affair. When all this was resolved on, he returned again to his friends, who were staying at Pemberley, but it was all agreed that he should be in London once more when the wedding took place, and all the money matters were then to receive the last finish. I believe I have now told you everything. It is a relation which you tell me is to give you the great surprise. I hope at least it will not afford you any displeasure. Lydia came to us, and Wickham had constant admission to the house. He was exactly what he had been when I knew him at Hertfordshire, but I would not tell you how little I was satisfied with her behavior while she stayed with us. If I had not perceived by Jane's letter last Wednesday that her conduct on coming home was exactly of a piece with it, and therefore what I now tell you can give you no fresh pain. I talked to her repeatedly in the most serious manner, representing to her all the wickedness of what she had done, and all the unhappiness she had brought on her family. If she heard me, it was by good luck, for I am sure she did not listen. It was sometimes quite provoked, but then I recollected my dear Elizabeth and Jane. For their sakes had patience with her. Mr. Darcy was punctual in his return, and as Lydia informed you, attended the wedding. He dined with us the next day and was to leave town again on Wednesday or Thursday. Will you be very angry with me, my dear Lizzie, if I take this opportunity of saying what I was never bold enough to say before? How much I like him. Come on! This is so great. She's the greatest. Oh, I love her so much. She's so great. Come on. His behavior to us has, in every respect, been as pleasing as when we were in Derbyshire. His understanding and opinions all please me. He wants nothing but a little more liveliness, and that, if he marry prudently, his wife may teach him. I thought him very sly. He hardly ever mentioned your name, but slyness seems the fashion. Pray forgive me. I have been very presuming, or at least do not punish me so far as to exclude me from the P. To exclude me from P. Pemberley? I shall never quite be happy till I have been round the park. Dude. Wow. A low phaeton with a nice little pair of ponies would be a very nice thing, but I must write no more. The children have been wanting me this half hour. Yours, very sincerely, M. Gardner. Oh my gosh. Wow. The hints. So, just so I know this. Okay, so we'll probably get some of the background later, but right now I'm gathering from the background. Wait, hold on. I need to figure this out. Did Darcy tell them that he intended to propose to Lizzie, or do they think that he already has proposed to Lizzie and that's why they're acting like this? Or did he say he proposed to Lizzie in the past? They're just assuming. Okay. So Mrs. Gardner can see through his reasons. Darcy comes here. Oh, she's so great. I love her so much because she can see through his crap. He's coming going, hey, by the way, I'm here because I want to, I feel bad about what happened and this is all the reason. And she's going, oh my gosh, come on. We know the real reason you're here, Darcy. She's so sweet. I love Mrs. Gardner. She's so intelligent. Oh, she's just so lovely. That's so sweet. It reminds you of your own mom. I love that. There's already an understanding what they're expecting wedding bells. What a great idea. What a great woman. And I love that. I love the reason why she ended the letter too. Like, that is a great reason. My kids need me. I've been away for like a half hour from them. They're wanting me. How old are the Gardners about? Like maybe like early 40s? She can't be more than 35? Interesting, okay. Mrs. Gardner is maybe in her 30s? Wow, that's crazy. The eldest is 8. Oh, wow, okay. Mrs. Gardner is younger than Mrs. Bennet. Mrs. Bennet's a little older though, right? Mrs. Bennet's what, like 50? Maybe a little younger? Maybe like late 40s? Janwell, enjoy bed. Have a good night. Mrs. He's been in his like 40s. Okay, interesting. Okay. All right, let's keep reading because I need to know what Lizzie's feeling now. The contents of this letter threw Elizabeth into a flutter of spirits, in which it was difficult to determine whether pleasure or pain bore the greatest share. And man, it must be so fun to, I just keep thinking about this. And I always think about this when I'm reading these books, like how fun it would be to just read this without any recollection or any understanding of what's coming after. You're like, okay, there is something coming. There is a train coming. The vague and unsettled suspicions which uncertainty had produced of what Mr. Darcy might have been doing to forward her sister's match, which she had feared to encourage, as an exertion of goodness too great to be probable, and at that same time dreaded to be just, from the pain of obligation, were proved beyond their greatest extent to be true. He had followed them purposely into town. He had taken on himself all the troubles and mortification attendant on such a research, in which supplication had been necessary to a woman whom he must abominate and despise. Yep. And where he was reduced to frequently meet, reason with persuade, and finally bribe. The man whom he always most wished to avoid, and whose very name it was punishment to him to pronounce. He had done all this for a girl whom he could neither regard nor esteem. Her heart did not whisper. She's putting it together. Oh, man, she's putting it together. This is fun to see, like, the everything kind of aligning in her head. Her heart did not whisper that he had done it for her. This is so sweet. But it was a hope surely checked by the other considerations, and she soon felt that her vanity was insufficient. When required to depend on his affection for her, for a woman who had already refused him, as able to overcome a sentiment so natural as abhorrence against relationship with Wickham, brother-in-law of Wickham. Every kind of pride must revolt from the connection. He had, to be sure, done much. She was ashamed to think how much. But he had given a reason for his interference, which asked no extraordinary stretch of belief. It was reasonable that he should feel he had been wrong. He had liberality, and he had the means of exercising it. And though she would not place herself as his principal inducement, she could perhaps believe that remaining partiality for her might assist his endeavors in a cause where her peace of mind must be materially concerned. It was painful, exceedingly painful, to know that they were under obligations to a person who could never receive a return. They owed the restoration of Lydia, her character, everything to him. Oh, how heartily did she grieve over every ungracious sensation she had never encouraged, every saucy speech she had ever directed toward him. For herself she was humbled, but she was proud of him. Proud that in a cause of compassion and honor. That's such a sweet turn of phrase. The problem is his pride, and now she is proud of him. Come on. Yeah, Lizzie, you are the principal inducement. She's thinking maybe it really is the character assessment that she wants. Man. She read over her aunt's commendation of him. Wait. She was proud of him. Proud that in a cause of compassion and honor he had been able to get the better of himself. She read over her aunt's commendation of him again and again. It was hardly enough, but it pleased her. She was even sensible of some pleasure, though mixed with regret on finding how steadfastly both she and her uncle had been persuaded that affection and confidence subsisted between Mr. Darcy and herself. This is great. there's also another really interesting point that I find where Lizzie is to some extent seeking approval from her aunt and uncle. Like I think this is very human nature. Like if you like someone, you want another person to be like, hey, this person is really great. I think you should go for this. And it kind of like helps you in your own mind. But now it's like she's like just keeps rereading the one Mrs. Gardner line where Mrs. Gardner's like, I really like him. I've always liked him. And in her mind, she's like, all right, that's all I needed. I needed one person to say that this was like okay and this would work. And then she's like sold. As a guy, you can safely say that one saucy speech from a woman gets you halfway in love with her. Yeah, Fitz Luna, exactly. And the Gardners are better endorsements than her parents too. I wonder if she was waiting for that from her parents, but her parents were just, her parents are just her parents. Man. This is excellent. All right, let's keep reading. She was roused from her seat and her reflections by someone's approach. And before she could strike into another path, she was overtaken by Wickham. I'm afraid I interrupt your solitary ramble, my dear sister. That's going to make me throw up my chai, said he as he joined her. You certainly do, she repeated with a smile, but it does not follow that the interruption must be unwelcome. I would be sorry indeed if it were. We were always good friends, and now we are better. This really is such a great change, too. Like, you go from, like, the greatest conversation in the book to disgust. And now we are better. True. Are the others coming out? I do not know. Mrs. Bennet and Lydia are going to the carriage to Meryton. And so, my dear sister, I find from our uncle and aunt that you have actually seen Pemberley. She replied in the affirmative. I must envy you the pleasure, and yet I believe it would be too much for me. Or else I could take it in the way to Newcastle, and you saw the old housekeeper, I suppose. Poor Reynolds. She was always very fond of me. But of course she did not mention my name to you. Yes, she did. And what did she say? That you were gone into the army. And she was afraid had not turned out well. At such a distance as that, things are strangely misrepresented. Certainly, he replied, biting his lips. Elizabeth hoped that she had silenced him. But he soon afterwards said, that's a hilarious line, because you can't silence a person like Wickham. That's actually a really interesting line. Because she completely should have silenced him with that line. The gall on him to keep going after this. Like, what does he think he's going to do? If the housekeeper, who he thinks she loves him, all of a sudden says he hasn't turned out well, and Lizzie's essentially like, hey, by the way, I know all. How the heck do you keep going and talking? You saw an edit of Pride and Prejudice where Wickham kissed Lizzie's hand and she thought, I better go wash my hand now. For sure. Yeah, anyone with any, that's exactly my point. Anyone with any ounce of shame would just shut up. And so he just keeps going because he has no shame, because he's just, it's crazy. This is what makes me think. So there's a, okay, so like people just don't change, people are people. But sometimes when I read stuff like that, it makes me really wonder the psychological writing. Like, it makes me wonder if these are not normal people. Because a normal person, like, sometimes I wish I had a degree in psychology, or like could understand human psychology more. Because is this not normal behavior to feel shame and then just to shut up? And so that's like some of the things where, like, there is obviously a whole heap of spectrum in that gray, but he's either normal or he's not, and he's a sociopath. I don't necessarily think that he's a sociopath, and I don't like diagnosing people like that. Like, I know people all the time call him like a narcissist or whatever else it is. I think to some extent I am like a Jane, and then I'm like, you need to see more of the person's character. And like, obviously we've seen all of his character, so like we know that we can kind of confirm some of those things. But maybe, yeah, more of a con man or a selfish creature. Yeah, it's really interesting. Interesting, a dark empath. That's something I've never heard, and I kind of like that. Well, I don't like that, but I kind of like the wording for that. Yeah, he really is a con man. Yeah, token rants, that's like what I kind of think. So I think his shame, he gets suppressed because he's really trying to be a social grifter to some extent. Like, it's really just fascinating trying to deep dive this guy. What really matters is taking him seriously to take his flaws seriously. Yeah, for sure. Which, at 6 o'clock. Hold on. It's going to go another few times. It only goes like one full set. Ooh, Michael, there's a connection with the Gardeners in Pride and Prejudice with an important family in Lord of the Rings, which you'll see in Appendix C, Family Trees. No way. That's actually so cool. I love that. You're psychiatrist. Let's go. Psychiatrist in the chat. He definitely has some antisocials and narcissistic traits. Interesting. Interesting. He definitely has those traits. And one of my questions, I guess, for some of that, and I've talked to my own therapist about some of this stuff. What is the degree of someone checks some of the boxes versus like they actually are that thing? I think sometimes there's more gray in that, where someone might check some of the boxes for it, but they aren't necessarily diagnosed with that. You know what I mean? Yeah, that is the Horn of Gondor. You knew him like this, an absolute nerve on him. Anything he got, he was owed, or you owed me. Completely bizarre. Interesting. Yeah, most things are in a spectrum. Yeah. Yep. All right, let's keep reading. Let me finish this chapter because this is just so excellent. What is he going to say? But he soon afterwards said, I was surprised to see Darcy in town last month. We passed each other several times. I wonder what he can be doing there. Perhaps preparing for his marriage with Miss de Burgh, said Elizabeth. It must be something particular to take him there at this time of year. Undoubtedly. Did you see him while you were at Lambton? I thought I understood from the Gardeners that you had. Yes, he introduced us to his sister. And do you like her? Very much. I have heard indeed that she is uncommonly improved within this year or two. He's like sussing out info here. This makes me so mad. She's uncommonly improved within this year or two. When I last saw her, she was not very promising. I am very glad you liked her. I hope she will turn out well. I dare say she will. She has gotten over the most trying age. Lizzie's going like, you messed with her at the most trying age of her life. Lizzie in her head is like, I have the upper hand on him, but she's still probably like seething inside. Did you go to the village of Kimpton? And he totally bypasses that question. Did you go to the village of Kimpton? I do not recollect that we did. I mention it because it is the living which I ought to have had. A most delightful place, excellent parsonage house. It would have suited me in every respect. How should you have liked making sermons? Exceedingly well. I should have considered it as part of my duty, and the exertion would soon have been nothing. One ought not to repine, but to be sure, it would have been such a fine thing, or it would have been such a thing for me. The quiet, the retirement of such a life would have answered all my ideas of happiness, but it was not to be. Did you ever hear Darcy mention this circumstance when you were in Kent? He's just fishing out information. This is such a fascinating discussion. I have heard from authority, which I thought as good, that it was left you conditionally only, and at the will of the present patron. You have, yes, there was something in that. I told you so from the first, you may remember. I did hear, too, that there was a time when sermon making was not so palatable to you as it seems to be at the present. That you actually declared your resolution of never taking orders, and that the business had been comprised accordingly. You did, and it was not wholly without foundation. You may remember what I told you on that point when first we talked of it. They were now almost at the door of the house, for she had walked fast to get rid of him, and unwilling for her sister's sake to provoke him, she only said in reply with a good-humored smile, "Come, Mr. Wickham, we are brother and sister, you know. Do not let us quarrel about the past. In future, I hope we shall be of one mind." She held out her hand. He kissed it with an affectionate gallantry, though he hardly knew how to look. And they entered the house. Dang. Oh my gosh. That I want to do I want to do a whole video analysis on that. I need to write a video essay for that one. That is like diagnosis of like how to I don't know what that would be. How to one up an insane person. how to have the ultimate mic drop moment. Wow, that was a frigid last sip of chai. Man, that was so interesting. Hold on, I'm gonna man, this is that was crazy. I need to yeah, I feel like I need to reread this chapter again. All right, let's do chapter 53. That whole one, I need to think about Wickham more and the whole situation. There's just so much going on there. All right. Jane Austen or Emily Bronte? It's a fun, lively debate with acting. Oh, nice. Oh, man. 10 days of that. Sheesh. Yeah, that's for sure. That would be a brutal 10 days. But it is great because Elizabeth goes away knowing that she kind of got the upper hand and knowing that, like, Wickham knows that she knows. And so that's enough for him to be petrified and terrified over the whole thing. All right, let's get to chapter 53. Mr. Wickham was so perfectly satisfied with this conversation that he never again distressed himself. What? Huh? How? Am I misunderstanding the idea of being perfectly satisfied? Oh, the iron. It's a saying with irony. Oh. Mr. Wickham was so perfectly satisfied with this conversation that he never again distressed himself or provoked his dear sister Elizabeth by introducing the subject of it, and he was pleased to find that she had said enough to keep him quiet. Dang. Okay. Love that. Sometimes I don't get irony and sarcasm in writing. I just got to finish the sentence. You guys just got to tell me to read and find out. Every so often, just tell me to read and find out. Also, everyone liked the stream. I forgot to mention that. Gosh, how did I forget to mention that? Yeah, he found out everything he needed to know. Man. You know, real quick anecdote. I used to be someone who never liked streams. I don't know why. I just was like, I don't have the time or the effort. And then I started doing it a few months ago, like a year ago. So there you go. Yeah, Nemo will ban you if you say read and find out. I should take Nemo's power away. All right, let's keep reading. The day of his and Lydia's departure soon came, and Mrs. Bennet was forced to submit to a separation, which, as her husband by no means entered into her scheme of all their going to Newcastle, was likely to continue at least 12 months. Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh. Could you imagine? Oh, my dear Lydia, she cried, when shall we meet again? Oh, Lord, I don't know. Not these 2 or 3 years, perhaps. Write to me very often, my dear. As often as I can, but you know, married women never have much time for writing. My sisters may write to me. They will have nothing else to do. Oh, this is it's like painful because she does not know what she's running into. Michael. Like Lydia is it's just like sad. Like I know it's interesting too because so Austen is a hilarious writer. She's like so funny, and like everything that you read from her can be like spoken of with a lot of humor to it. But at the same point, the humor is like disguised terror. Like Mr. Collins, to me, one of the most comedic, funny characters in literature. Underneath that humor is a scary dude. This is the same thing. Like Lydia, like this whole, I don't think this whole thing is like shrouded in comedy, to be completely honest. But Lydia's lines in this novel right now are so comedic, and they're so, this is absurd, and they're hilarious, but they're also so dark. They're like scary dark because she does not know what she's walking into. IYDRYWFO. If you don't read, You won't find out. I like that. That's the new one, Michael. Start implementing that into all the streams. Yeah, for sure. Darcy warned her, but I think the thing is everyone's warning her, but she does not know really what she's doing because she's too young. Not that like a 16-year-old can't, but she's like young and foolish. Yeah, she's going to do a lot of growing up. I think life's going to hit her pretty hard. Life is going to hit her like a freight train. Mr. Wickham's adieus were much more affectionate than his wife's. He smiled, looked handsome, and said many pretty things. He is as fine a fellow, said Mr. Bennet. Wait, there's a footnote by Mr. Bennet. Mr. Bennet, RWC has suggested that this probably should be Mrs. Bennet. It is she who replies, and there is no indication that Mr. Bennet is present during the scene. What's RWC? Carolyn Bingley warned them. That is crazy. Totally forgot about that. That's actually crazy. He is as fine a fellow, said Mr. Bennet, as they soon were out of the house, as I ever saw. He simpers and smirks and makes love to us all. I am prodigiously proud of him. I defy even Sir William Lucas himself to produce a more valuable son-in-law. The loss of her daughters made Mrs. Bennet very dull for several days. So that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like it's interesting too because Robert William Chapman, Austen scholar. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I would say it's funny because that line being misunderstood could be said by Mrs. Bennet very clearly. But I think Mr. Bennet was a bit more clear of that because this is like dripping with sarcasm. It's either super sarcastic or super genuine, which is really sad to me. But I think Austen's style makes this a Mr. Bennet line a bit more than it is a Mrs. Bennet line. That's actually really fascinating. Yeah, definitely not genuine. I often think, said she, that there is nothing so bad as parting with one's friends. One seems so forlorn without them. This is the consequence, you see, madam, of marrying a daughter, said Elizabeth. It must make you better satisfied than that your other four are single. It is no such thing. Lydia does not leave me because she is married, but only because her husband's regiment happens to be far off. If that had been nearer, she would not have gone so soon. But the spiritless condition which this event threw her into was shortly relieved, and her mind opened again to the agitation of hope by an article of news, which then began to be in circulation. The housekeeper at Netherfield had received orders to prepare for the arrival of her master. No way! Who was coming down in a day or two. To shoot there for several weeks. Mrs. Bennet was quite in the fidgets. She looked at Jane and smiled and shook her head by turns. Excuse me? Hold on. I need to freaking get an actual image of this sucker. That's the meme that we're gonna keep using for this. He's back. Well. And so Mr. Bingley is coming down, sister. For Mr. Bingley's theme music. For Mrs. Phillips first brought her the news. Also, thanks for the $2.79. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Well, so much the better. Not that I care about it, though. He is nothing to us, you know. and I am sure I never want to see him again. But however, he is very welcome to come to Netherfield if he likes it, and who knows what may happen. But that is nothing to us, sister. We agreed long ago never to mention a word about it, and so it is quite certain he is coming. Who is... she looked at Jane and smiled. Shook her head by turns. So Elizabeth speaking to Jane here. You may depend on it, replied the other. For Mrs. Nichols was in Meryton last night. I saw her passing by and went out myself on purpose to know the truth of it. And she told me that it was certain true. He comes down on Thursday at the very latest. Very likely on Wednesday. She was going to the butcher's. She told me on purpose to order in some meat on Wednesday, and she has got 3 couple of ducks, just fit to be killed. Oh, Mrs. Bennet and Mrs. Phillips. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Interesting. Oh, I missed that. Thank you. He comes... Miss Bennet had not been able to hear of his coming without changing color. It was many months since she had mentioned his name to Elizabeth, but now, as soon as they were together alone, she said, I saw you look at me today, Lizzie, when my aunt told us of one present report. And I know I appeared distressed, but don't imagine it was from any silly cause. I was only confused for the moment, because I felt that I should be looked at. I do assure you that the news does not affect me either with pleasure or pain. I am glad of one thing, that he comes alone, because we shall see the less of him. Not that I am afraid of myself, but I dread other people's remarks. Elizabeth did not know what to make of it. She had not seen him in Derbyshire, or had she not seen him in Derbyshire, she might have supposed him capable of coming there with no other view than what was acknowledged. But she still thought him partial to Jane, and she wavered as to the greater probability of his coming there with his friend's permission, or being bold enough to come without it. Oh, I like that. Yeah, he thinks Jane does protest too much. Jane, you're lying. Yep. This is denial 101. Yet it is hard, she sometimes thought, that this poor man cannot come to a house which he has legally hired without raising all this speculation. I will leave him to himself. In spite of what her sister declared and really believed to be her feelings in the expectation of his arrival, Elizabeth could easily perceive that her spirits were affected by it. They were much more disturbed, more unequal than she had often seen them. The subject which had been so warmly canvassed between her parents about 12 months ago was now brought forward again. As soon as ever Mr. Bingley comes, my dear, said Mrs. Bennet. You will wait on him, of course. No. You forced me into visiting him last year, and promised if I went to see him, he should marry one of my daughters. But it ended in nothing, and I will not be sent on a fool's errand again. His wife represented to him now how absolutely necessary such an attention would be from all the neighboring gentlemen on his returning to Netherfield. 'Tis an etiquette I despise, said he. If he wants our society, let him seek it. He knows where we live. I will not spend my hours in running after my neighborhood every time they will go away and come back again. Well, all I know is that it will be abominably rude if you do not wait on him. But, however, we shan't prevent my asking him to dine here. I am determined. We have Mrs. Long and the Gouldings soon. That will make 13 with ourselves. So there will be room at the table for him. Now, I gotta say, this is Mr. and Mrs. Bennet. They're both awful and they're annoying. This is where Mr. Bennet is getting more annoying to me. I'm like an introvert, so I'm okay with if your neighbors just are coming and going all the time. I don't have to go greet them and say hi to them and have a conversation with them every single time. Yeah, 13 at the table. First person to rise is going to die. But it makes me like, Like, he is just sitting there not doing anything. Like, you're not doing anything, Mr. Bennett. Just go and maybe he will, because this is what he said before in the first section of this novel, and maybe he really will go and, like, welcome Mr. Bingley again. But what else are you doing? Just go make a short conversation with your neighbor to help out your daughters. Come on, dude. Get off your arse. Yeah, Mr. Bennett is kind of lazy. Exactly. Like, this Mrs. Bennett's doing more of her job now, even though she's insufferable. Maybe he is just talking. They are already acquainted, but there's a point where, like, this is your neighbor coming back. Like, do you not just take, like, enjoyment in going to have a short conversation with your neighbor about, like, how you been? How's the hunting? Like, that's what neighbors do. I don't know. Where are we? It's past 6. This is an actual fire alarm. The Horns of Gondor. The Horns of Netherfield. Imagine if this played as soon as we were reading about him, Netherfield being led again. Mr. Bingley's coming back. Those are the Horns of Netherfield right there. The beacons are lit. The Bennets call for aid, and Bingley will answer. That must be horn blown by Mary Bennett in the background. Yeah, poor little Mary. Yeah, it does sound like a train, to be completely honest. All right, now we're good. Happy shall I be, sorry, where am I? Consoled by this resolution, she was the better able to bear her husband's incivility, though it was very mortifying to know that her neighbors might all see Mr. Bingley in consequence of it before they did. As the day of his arrival drew near, I begin to be sorry that he comes at all, said Jane to her sister. It would be nothing. I could see him with perfect indifference, but I can hardly bear to hear it thus perpetually talked of. My mother means well, but she does not know. No one can know how much I suffer from what she says. How happy shall I be when his stay at Netherfield is over? I wish I could say anything to comfort you, replied Elizabeth, but it is wholly out of my power. Oh, interesting. You must feel it. And the usual satisfaction of preaching patience to a sufferer is denied me, because you always have so much. Interesting. Lizzie's in the back of her head. She's like, just be patient. He still loves you, but she can't really say exactly everything in it. She's being good here. She is doing a great job of keeping a secret, which is what we talked about before. Good job, Lizzie. I love this. And she's doing it for the sake of her sister here. This is great. Mr. Bingley arrived. Mrs. Bennet, though the assistance of servants, contrived to have the earliest of tidings, that the period of anxiety and fretfulness on her side might not be as long as it could. She counted the days that must intervene before their invitation could be sent, hopeless of seeing him before. But on the 3rd morning after his arrival in Hertfordshire, he saw him from her dressing-room window enter the paddock and ride toward the house. Her daughters were eagerly called to partake of her joy. Jane resolutely kept her place at the table, but Elizabeth, to satisfy her mother, went to the window. She looked. She saw Mr. Darcy with him, and sat down again by her sister. There's a gentleman with him, Mamma, said Kitty. Who can it be? Some acquaintance or other, my dear, I suppose. I am sure I do not know. Laugh, replied Kitty. It looks just like the man that used to be with him before, Mr. What's-his-name, that tall, proud man. Good gracious, Mr. Darcy, and so it does, I vow. Well, any friend of Mr. Bingley will always be welcome here, to be sure. But else I must say that I hate the very sight of him. Oh my gosh! This is crazy! That's your favorite Kitty moment? She has amnesia. She doesn't really remember names. Jane looked at Elizabeth with surprise and concern. She knew little but of their meeting in Derbyshire, and therefore felt for the awkwardness which must attend her sister in seeing him almost for the first time after receiving his explanatory letter. Both sisters were uncomfortable enough. Each felt for the other, and of course for themselves. And their mother talked on, of her dislike of Mr. Darcy, and her resolution to be civil to him only as Mr. Bingley's friend, without being heard by either of them. But Elizabeth had sources of uneasiness which could not be suspected by Jane, to whom she had never yet had courage to show Mrs. Gardiner's letter, or to relate to her own change of sentiment towards him. To Jane, he could be only the man whose proposals she had refused, and whose merit she had undervalued. But to her own more extensive information, he was the person to whom the whole family were indebted for the first of benefits, and whom she regarded herself with an interest, if not quite so tender, at least as reasonable and just as what Jane felt for Bingley. Her astonishment at his coming to Netherfield, to Longbourn, and voluntarily seeking her again, was almost equal to what she had known on first witnessing his altered behavior in Derbyshire. The color which had been driven from her face returned for half a minute, with an additional glow, and a smile of delight added luster to her eyes as she thought for that space of time that his affection and wishes must still be unshaken. But she would not be secure. "Let me first see how he behaves," she said. "It will then be early enough for expectations." She sat intently at work, striving to be composed, and without daring to lift up her eyes, till anxious curiosity carried them to the face of her sister. And as the servant was approaching the door, Jane looked a little paler than usual, but more sedate than Elizabeth had expected. On the gentleman's approaching, her color increased, yet she received them with tolerable ease, and with a propriety of behavior equally free from any symptom of resentment, or any unnecessary complacence. Elizabeth said as little to either as civility would allow, and sat down again to her work, with an eagerness which it did not often command. She had ventured only one glance at Darcy. He looked serious as usual, and she thought more as he had been used to look in Hertfordshire than as she had seen him at Pemberley. But perhaps he could not in her mother's presence be what he was before her uncle and aunt. It was a painful but not an improbable conjecture. Bingley she had likewise seen for an instant, and in that short period saw him looking both pleased and embarrassed. He was received by Mrs. Bennet with a degree of civility which made her two daughters ashamed, especially when contrasted with the cold and unceremonious politeness of her curtsy and her address to his friend. Elizabeth particularly, who knew that her mother owed to the latter the preservation of her favorite daughter from an irredeemable infamy, was hurt and distressed to a most painful degree by a distinction so ill applied. The under the current stress of this, oh my gosh, Jane Austen really knows how to put you in this, like, let's try to analyze every little emotion that people are experiencing right here. Darcy, after inquiring of her how Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner did, a question which she could not answer without confusion, said scarcely anything. He was not seated by her. Perhaps that was the reason of his silence, but it had not been so in Derbyshire. There he had talked to her friends, when he could not to herself. But now several minutes elapsed without bringing the sound of his voice, and when occasionally, unable to resist the impulse of curiosity, she raised her eyes to face his question. Raised his eyes to his face. She as often found him looking at Jane as at herself, and frequently on no object but the ground. More thoughtfulness and less anxiety to please than when they last met were plainly expressed. She was disappointed and angry with herself for being so. Now this is interesting because Darcy, there's a lot going on in Darcy's mind, because he's almost doing this like as a penance. This is fascinating. I just want conversation. Give me more conversation. Could I expect it to be otherwise, said she. Yet why did he come? She was in no humor for conversation with anyone but himself, and she talked, and to him she had hardly courage to speak. She inquired after his sister, but could do no more. It is a long time, Mr. Bingley, since you went away, said Mrs. Bennet. He readily agreed to it. I began to be afraid that you would never come back again. People did say you meant to quit the place entirely at Michaelmas, but however, I hoped it not true. A great many changes have happened in the neighborhood since you went away. Miss Lucas is married and settled, and one of my own daughters. I suppose you have heard of it. Indeed, you must have seen it in the papers. It was in the Times and the Courier. I know that was not put in it as ought to be. It was only said lately George Wickham esque to Miss Lydia Bennet, without there being a syllable of her father or the place where she lived or anything. It was my brother Gardner's drawing up too. Huh. I wonder how he came to make such an awkward business of it. Did you see it? Darcy probably did this. Yeah, probably. Now that you say that. Huh, interesting. Okay, I gotta finish this chapter. I just want conversation now. Bingley replied that he did, and he made his congratulations. Elizabeth dared not lift up her eyes. How Mr. Darcy looked, therefore, she could not tell. Whew. The tension in this room is immense. It is a delightful thing, to be sure, to have a daughter well married. Please tell me we're not just going to get Mrs. Bennet talking. I want anything but that. If they leave and we just get Mrs. Bennet talking, I am going to be mad. But at the same time, Mr. Bingley, it is very hard to have her taken such away from me. They are gone down to Newcastle, a place quite northward, it seems. And there they are to stay. I do not know how long. His regiment is there. For I suppose you have heard of his leaving the Shire, and of his being gone into the regulars. Thank heaven. He has some friends, though perhaps not so many as he deserves. Oh my gosh. Shut up. Elizabeth, who knew this to be leveled at Mr. Darcy, was in such misery of shame that she could hardly keep her seat. It drew from her, however, the exertion of speaking, which nothing else had so effectually done before. And she asked Bingley whether he meant to make any stay in the country at present. A few weeks, he believed. When you have killed all your own birds, Mr. Bingley, said her brother, I beg you will come here and shoot as many as you please on Mr. Bennet's manor. I am sure he will be vastly happy to oblige you, and will save all the best of the coveys for you. Elizabeth's misery increased at such unnecessary, such officious attention. Were the same fair prospect to arise at present as had flattered them a year ago, everything she was persuaded would be hastening to the same vexatious conclusion. In that instant she felt that years of happiness could not make Jane or herself amends for moments of such painful confusion. Interesting line. The first wish of my heart, she said to herself, is never more to be in company with either of them. Their society can afford no pleasure that will atone for such wretchedness as this. Let me never see either one or the other again. Wow, interesting. Yet the misery, for which years of happiness were to offer no compensation, received soon afterward material relief from observing how much the beauty of her sisters rekindled the admiration of her former lover. When first he came in, he had spoken to her but little, but every 5 minutes seemed to be giving her more of his attention. He found her as handsome as she had been last year, as good-natured, and as unaffected, though not quite so chatty. Jane was anxious that no difference should be perceived in her at all, and was really persuaded that she talked as much as ever, but her mind was busily engaged, that she did not always know when she was silent. When the gentleman rose to go away, Mrs. Bennet was mindful of her intended civility, and they were invited and engaged to dine at Longbourn in a few days' time. You are quite a visit in my debt, Mr. Bingley, she added. For when you went up to town last winter, you promised to take a family with us. You promised to take a family dinner with us as soon as you returned. I have not forgot, you see. And I assure you, I was very much disappointed that you did not come back and keep your engagement. Bingley looked a little silly at this reflection and said something of his concern at having been prevented by business. They then went away. Mrs. Bennet had been strongly inclined to ask them to stay and dine there that day, but though she always kept a very good table, she did not think anything less than 2 courses could be good enough for a man on whom she had such anxious designs, or satisfy the appetite and pride of the one who had 10,000 a year. Oh my gosh. This is agony. We left... is this just like common like chivalry or courtesy? Like how do we enter into a conversation? How do they come into this room and not spill all? I guess they're in front of the mother who's like the source of a lot of this annoyance and grievance. But how does Bingley not be like, Jane, may I talk to you? Actually, you can't talk to one-on-one with the person, right? You guys are saying that about, or no, the letter. That was the letter that Darcy sent. That was just agony. Just Mrs. Bennet would just shut up so we can get conversation that happens between Bingley and between Jane so they can reconcile. Ay. Camera keeps losing focus because I'm losing my mind. Hold on, I gotta just move it over. Ay. Nerve-wracking to choose to ask, for one-on-one, for sure. And I know, like, I keep saying that, but I'm putting myself in the shoes of these people here, and it's easier said than done. Like, sometimes you're in a first meeting with a person like this, and it's hard to bring this stuff up first. And the second time is maybe a little easier. Yeah, and Bingley still isn't sure. She has to overcome being told she's not into him. Interesting. I wonder what Jane was really doing in this conversation. Jane is hurt, so she's like... Jane must be in... Elizabeth's probably in the most agony. Okay, let's sit and rank the agony that each of these people are in, because this is actually so fascinating. Who's in the greatest agony? Elizabeth? No, maybe Mr. Darcy is in the most agony, because Mr. Darcy is sitting here listening to this woman slam him for literally saving the family. Yeah, okay, so number 1 is me. Number 2 is Mr. Darcy. Number 2 is us. Or number 1 is just us. Number 2 is Mr. Darcy or Elizabeth. But honestly, Jane might be in unbelievable agony too. I think Mr. Bingley is probably the least agony because he just had this, not that he had this taken out of his mind, but he has to like recall his thoughts on this and try to like read a person. Mr. Bingley's just going there with one intention. He's like, her mother sucks, but I really like her, so I want to see if that she likes me. So he's thinking of all these little things. But Jane is going, Jane doesn't know the whole thing that happened. She's like, I still need to act with like propriety. I'm really hurt by this guy. I don't really know what's going on. I don't know why they're really here. I don't know why they're calling on us. I need to like try to figure out what his feelings are for me and if there still is anything, but I'm really hurt still. Man, tension. And then you just have Mrs. Bennet just chatting. Just, she's so annoying. Oh. All right. All right, let's do chapter 54. I'm just like, we're just in agony right now. That's all we're doing. We're just in agony, trying to figure this stuff out. Oy, oy. I'm like ripping my hair out. I wanted a conversation between all of them right there. I just needed a good conversation. Maybe that's what 56 is going to be about. All right, chapter 54. As soon as they were gone, Elizabeth walked out to recover her spirits, or in other words, to dwell without interruption on those subjects that must deaden them more. Mr. Darcy's behavior astonished and vexed her. Why, if he came only to be silent, grave, and indifferent, said she, did he come at all? That's a little harder to decipher. That's actually honestly a good question, but I think that he's coming because he's helping his friend. Like maybe the conversation that happened before this was like Bingley was like, no, she doesn't like me. You've told me that before. I'm not going to go. And Darcy's like, hey, I'm going to go with you. So he's just being a good friend in that moment. I don't know if Lizzie can sense that. Well, I think that she can, but I don't know if that she knows that. To me, that's his primary motive. He's just going as a wingman, so he's not really trying to like get in Elizabeth's good graces again. I think he's just going so that he can help Bingley out, like help Bingley get the courage. And honestly, the fact that they're both together here almost makes it like Darcy is forcing him to come here. He was like, "Look, I made a mistake. We're going back, and we're gonna get into her good graces, and you're gonna see how much she actually likes you." So he's making amends for what he did before, which is great. Can't say another good thing for Darcy. We'll just speak of his praise till, I'm blue in the face. All right, let me keep reading. She could settle it in no way that gave her pleasure. He could still be amiable, still pleasing to my aunt and uncle when he was in town. And why not to me? If he fears me, why come hither? If he no longer cares for me, why silent, teasing, man. I think I will think no more about him. Yeah, you keep telling yourself that, Lizzie. Literally, that's all you're going to be thinking about for the next week of your life, I'm sure. Her resolution was for a short time involuntarily kept by the approach of her sister, who joined her with a cheerful look, which showed her better satisfaction with her visitors than Elizabeth. Now, said she, this is the first meeting is over. I feel perfectly easy. I know my own strength. I shall never be embarrassed again by his coming. I am glad he dines here on Tuesday. It will then be publicly seen that on both sides we meet only as common and indifferent acquaintance. Yes, very indifferent indeed, said Elizabeth laughingly. Oh, Jane, take care. My dear Lizzie, you cannot think me so weak as to be in danger now. I think you are in very great danger of making him as much in love with you as ever. They did not see the gentleman again till Tuesday, and Mrs. Bennet, in the meanwhile, was giving way all the happy schemes which the good humour and common politeness of Bingley, in half an hour's wit, had revived. On Tuesday, there was a large party assembled at Longbourn, and the two, who were most anxiously expected, to the credit of their punctuality as sportsmen, were in very good time. When they repaired to the dining room, Elizabeth eagerly watched to see whether Bingley would take the place, which, in all their former parties, had belonged to him, by her sister. Her prudent mother, occupied by the same ideas, forbore to invite him to sit by herself. On entering the room, he seemed to hesitate, but Jane happened to look round and happened to smile. It was decided. He placed himself by her. Oh, let's go! This is great. That's so funny. What a man. He's getting bold. Yeah, for sure. What is the mother doing? What is Mrs. Bennet doing? If her concern is to get them married, why is she saying sit by me rather than my daughter? I don't understand that. Is she trying to say like sit by me so I can hype my daughter up? She doesn't know when to just back off. I think that's the base of it right now. She just does not know how to back off. Forbear means she didn't. Forebode. Wait, it says her prudent mother, occupied with the same ideas, forbore to invite him to sit by herself. Wait, okay, so she's going... Oh, okay. Forebode. I've never heard the word forebore. Okay, she actually said, no, I don't want you to sit by me. Okay, so then she's doing what she's doing. So that's good. She's awful, but she's not that bad. Exactly. Okay, so all right. There you go. So she does something okay. Man, slayed him with a smile. Upon entering the room, he seemed to hesitate, but Jane happened to look round and happened to smile. It was decided. He placed himself by her. And I love that too, that it's not that he doesn't smile at her or she doesn't smile at him. She just smiles. She probably was trying not even to look at him, but it shows like she's just still of a good like nature, even though she's been hurt. I love Jane so much. He just looks around, sees her smile, and is like, I'm sitting next to that. I'm sitting next to that hottie. Elizabeth, with a triumphant sensation, looked toward his friend. He bore it with a noble indifference, and she wouldn't have imagined that Bingley had received his sanction to be happy, had she not seen his eyes likewise turned toward Mr. Darcy with an expression of half-laughing alarm. Well, Elizabeth, with a triumphant sensation, looked toward his friend. He bore it with noble indifference, and she would have imagined that Bingley had received his sanction to be happy. Aw. Had she not seen his eyes likewise turned toward Mr. Darcy, with an expression of half-laughing alarm. Aw, that's kind of cute. Like, Darcy is honestly like his older brother. He's like asking permission for what he's doing. It's kind of cute. His behavior to her sister was such during dinner time as showed an admiration of her, which, though more guarded than formerly, persuaded Elizabeth that if left wholly to himself, Jane's happiness and his own would be speedily secured. Though she dared not depend upon the consequence, she yet received pleasure from observing his behavior. It gave her all the animation that her spirits could boast, for she was in no cheerful humor. Mr. Darcy was almost as far from her as the table could divide them. He was on one side of her mother. She knew how little such a situation would give pleasure to either, or make either appear to advantage. She was not near enough to hear any of their discourse, but she could not see how seldom they spoke to each other, and how formal and cold was their manner whenever they did. Her mother's ungraciousness made the whole sense of what they owed him more painful to Elizabeth's mind, and she would at times have given anything to be privileged to tell him that his kindness was neither unknown nor unfelt by the whole family. She was in hopes that in the evening that the evening would afford some opportunity of bringing them together, that the whole of this visit would not pass away without enabling them to enter into some more of conversation than the mere ceremonious salutation attending his entrance. Anxious and uneasy, the period which passed into the drawing room before the gentleman came was wearisome and dull to a degree that almost made her uncivil. She looked forward to their entrance as the point on which all her chance of pleasure for the evening must depend. If he does not come to me, then, she said, I shall give him up forever. Come on, Elizabeth. That's dramatic. That's crazy. Yeah, I do love that he is taking the bullet here. Darcy is just being great. No one wants to sit next to her, and Darcy's like, fine, I'll do it. The gentleman came, and she thought he looked as if he would have answered her hopes. But alas, the ladies had crowded round the table, where Miss Bennet was making tea, and Elizabeth pouring out the coffee in so close a confederacy that there was not a single vacancy near her, which would admit of a chair. And on the gentleman's approaching, one of the girls moved closer to her than ever and said in a whisper, The men shan't come and part us, I am determined. We want none of them, do we? Dude, women need to be better wing women. Darcy had walked away to another part of the room. She followed him with her eyes, envied everyone to whom he spoke, had scarcely patience enough to help anybody to coffee, and then was enraged against herself for being so silly. There's a part of me that's going, Lizzie, why don't you just go up and talk to him yourself? But is that not considered? Do people not do that in this society? In Regency era? Like, can a woman not go up to a man and be like, how's your day gone? She's serving coffee. She's on coffee duty. Well, bring a coffee to him. That's how she needs to get him. How do you like your coffee? I'll remember it forever. I'll do this every day. Headcanon, it was Mariah Lucas? No! What a dummy. Men approach women. She doesn't want to seem obvious, but if she's in such agony, she's got to do something. Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's keep going. This is just rough. A man who has once been refused, how could I ever be so foolish enough to expect a renewal of his love? Is there one among the sex who could not protest against such a weakness as a second proposal to the same woman? There is no indignity so abhorrent to their feelings. She was a little revived, however, by his bringing back his coffee cup himself, and she seized the opportunity of saying, there we go, Lizzie, well done. Is your sister at Pemberley still? Yeah, she will remain there till Christmas. And quite alone? Have all her friends left her? Mrs. Annesley is with her. The others have been gone on to Scarsborough these 3 weeks. She could think of nothing more to say, but if he wished to converse with her, he might have better success. He stood by her, however, for some minutes in silence, and at last, on the young lady's whispering to Elizabeth again, he walked away. Oh, dude, the agony that he's experiencing. He's like churning inside. Oh, come on, dude. He's trying to rack his brain. He's like, what do I say? What do I say? What do I say? When the tea things were removed and the card tables placed, the ladies all rose. And Elizabeth was then hoping to be soon joined by him, when all her views were overthrown by seeing him fall victim to her mother's rapacity for whist players. And in a few moments after seated with the rest of the party, she now lost every expectation of pleasure. They were confined for the evening at different tables, and she had nothing to hope, but that his eyes were so often turned toward her side of the room as to make him play unsuccessfully as herself. Mrs. Bennet had designed to keep the 2 Netherfield gentlemen to supper, but their carriage was unluckily ordered before any of the others, and she had no opportunity of detaining them. Come on, this is brutal. Ah. Well, girls, she said, as soon as they were left to themselves, what say you to the day? I think everything has passed off uncommonly well, I assure you. The dinner was was well dressed as I ever saw. The venison was roasted to a turn, and everybody said they never saw so fat a haunch. The soup was 50 times better than what we had at Lucas's last week. And even Mr. Darcy acknowledged that the partridges were remarkably well done. And I suppose he has 2 or 3 French cooks at least. And my dear Jane, I never saw you look in a greater beauty. Mrs. Long said so too, for I asked her whether you did not. And what do you think? She said besides, Mrs. Bennet, we shall have her at Netherfield at last. She did indeed. I do not think Mrs. Long is as good a creature as ever lived. And her nieces are very pretty behaved girls, and not at all handsome. I like them prodigiously. Mrs. Bennet, in short, was in very great spirits. She had seen enough of Bingley's behavior to Jane to be convinced that she would get him at last. And her expectations of advantage to her family when in a happy humor were so far beyond reason that she was quite disappointed at not seeing them there again the next day to make his proposals. It had been a very agreeable day, said Miss Bennet to Elizabeth. The party seems so well selected, so suitable one with the other. I hope we may often meet again. Elizabeth smiled. Lizzie, you must not do so. You must not suspect me. It mortifies me, I assure you, that I have now learnt to enjoy his conversation as an agreeable and sensible young man without having a wish beyond it. I am perfectly satisfied from what his manners now are that I never had any design of engaging my affection. It is only that he is blessed with greater sweetness of address and a stronger desire of generally pleasing than any other man. You are very cruel, said her sister. You will not let me smile and are provoking me to it every moment. How hard it is in some cases to be believed, and how impossible in others. Why should you wish to persuade me that I feel more than I acknowledge? That is a question which I hardly know the answer. We all love to instruct, though we can teach only what is not worth knowing. Forgive me, and if you persist in indifference, do not make me your confidant. Jane, I know Jane doesn't want to get hurt again. Poor precious Jane. I love her. She's great. All right, we got a long last chapter, chapter 55. We're not that long, kind of average. Come on. Yeah, Jane is really trying to persuade herself. I don't love him. I don't really love him. I'm not going to get in love with him. Meanwhile, she's out here. Yeah, for sure. This is kind of the dinner that I wanted, but no, not at all. I wanted one that was honestly. There's a difference. There's too much going on. I really like her writing here because, um, it is so chaotic, but it's just agonizing. Like I wanted a dinner. It would have been, I don't know. I wanted the dinner with Elizabeth and the Gardeners and Mr. Darcy. That's what I want. And I know we were going to have Bingley there, and I know Charlotte or Carolyn was going to be there, and Mr. and Mrs. Hurst were going to be there, and Miss Darcy. That would have been all, but just like a little intimate meeting with them. So close. I know. Ay, ay. Allison is really great at writing sisters. It makes me nervous. I've been really looking for it. And this is like great, but I need like, this is wild. I like, this is one of those moments where I think her writing is so excellent because it's just very economical and like very like psychological and perfect. But I want everything even more drawn out. I want like a director's cut. I want just like, give me every detail. Yeah. I know the sarcasm. All right, chapter 55. Let me get a swig of water. That's cool that her and her sister were besties. I like that. A few days after this visit, Mr. Bingley called again, and alone. His friend had left him that morning for London. Sorry. Oh no, Darcy's in London. What's Darcy doing in London? But was to return home in 10 days' time. Agony, come on. He sat with them above an hour and was in remarkably good spirits. Mrs. Bennet invited him to dine with them, but with many expressions of concern, he confessed himself engaged elsewhere. Next time you call, said she, I hope we shall be more lucky. He should be particularly happy at any time, etc., etc., and if she would give him leave, would take an early opportunity of waiting on them. Can you come tomorrow? Yes, he had no engagement at all for tomorrow, and her invitation was accepted with alacrity. He came, and in such very good time that the ladies were none of them dressed, and ran Mrs. Bennet to her daughter's room, in her dressing gown, and with her hair half finished, crying out, My dear Jane, make haste and hurry down. He is come. Mr. Bingley is come. He is indeed. Make haste, make haste. Here, Sarah, come to Miss Bennet this moment, and help her on with her gown. Never mind Lizzie's hair. We will be down as soon as we can, said Jane. But I dare say Kitty is forwarder than either of us, for she went upstairs half an hour ago. Oh, hang Kitty! What does she have? What has she to do with it? Come, be quick, be quick. Where is your sash, my dear? When her mother was gone, Jane would not be prevailed on to go down without one of her sisters. The same anxiety to get them by themselves was visible again in the evening. After tea, Mr. Bennet retired to the library, as was his custom, and Mary went upstairs to her instrument. 2 obstacles of the 5 being thus removed, Mrs. Bennet sat looking. That's great. Mrs. Bennet sat looking and winking at Elizabeth and Catherine for a considerable time without making any impression on them. Elizabeth would not observe her, and when at last Kitty did, she said, she very innocently said, "What is the matter, Mama? What do you keep winking at me for? What am I to do?" Come on! Mrs. Bennet is actually kind of doing something interesting here. I kind of don't mind this. "Nothing, child, nothing. I did not wink at you." She then sat still 5 minutes longer, but unable to waste such a precious occasion, she suddenly got up and saying to Kitty, "Come here, my love, I want to speak to you," took her out of the room. Jane instantly gave a look at Elizabeth which spoke her distress at such premeditation and her entreaty that she would not give in to it. In a few minutes, Mrs. Bennet half opened the door and called out, "Lizzie, my dear, I want to speak with you." Elizabeth was forced to go. This is great. What's he gonna do in this chapter? Is he gonna propose? I don't think so. Maybe he's just gonna explain himself. Yeah, Mrs. Bennet is being a little obvious here, but she's doing something good. "We may as well leave them by themselves, said her mother as soon as she was in the hall. "Kitty and I are going upstairs to sit in my dressing room." Elizabeth made no attempt to reason with her mother, but remained quietly in the hall till she and Kitty were out of sight, then returned into the drawing room. Mrs. Bennet's schemes for this day were ineffectual. Bingley was everything that was charming except the professed lover of her daughter. His ease and cheerfulness rendered him a most agreeable addition to their evening party, and he bore with the ill-judged officiousness of the mother and heard all her silly remarks with a forbearance and command of countenance, particularly grateful to the daughter. He scarcely needed an invitation to stay to supper, and before he went away, an engagement was formed, chiefly through his own and Mrs. Bennet's means, for his coming next morning to shoot with her husband. After this day, Jane said no more of her indifference. Not a word passed between the sisters concerning Bingley, but Elizabeth went to bed in the happy belief that all must speedily be concluded, unless Mr. Darcy returned within the stated time. Seriously, however, she felt tolerably persuaded that all this must have taken place with that gentleman's concurrence. Bingley was punctual to his appointment, and he and Mr. Bennet spent the morning together, as had been agreed on. The latter was much more agreeable than his companion expected. The Bennets are doing something decent here. There was nothing of presumption or folly in Bingley that could provoke his ridicule or disgust him into silence, and he was more communicative and less eccentric than others had ever seen him. Bingley, of course, returned with him to dinner, and in the evening Mrs. Bennet's invitation was again at work to get everybody away from him and her daughter. Elizabeth, who had a letter to write, went into the breakfast room for that purpose soon after tea. For as the others were all going to sit down to cards, she could not be wanted to counteract her mother's schemes. But on returning to the drawing room, when her letter was finished, she saw, to her infinite surprise, there was reason to fear that her mother had been too ingenious for her. On opening the door, she perceived her sister and Bingley standing together over the hearth, as if engaged in earnest conversation. And had this led to no suspicion, the faces of both, as they hastily turned around and moved away from each other, would have told it all. Their situation was awkward enough, but hers, she thought, was still worse. Not a syllable was uttered by either, and Elizabeth was on the point of going away again when Bingley, who as well as the other had sat down, suddenly rose, and whispering a few words to her sister, ran out of the room. Wow. That happened so fast. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, were they kissing? That's actually an interesting question. Why not? I like it. Wait, I want to reread this. On opening the door, she perceived her sister and Bingley standing together over the hearth as if engaged in earnest conversation. And had this led to no suspicion, the faces of both as they hastily turned round and moved away from each other would have told it all. Their situation was awkward enough, but hers she thought was still worse. Not a syllable was uttered by either, and Elizabeth was on the point of going away again when Bingley, who, as well as the other, had sat down, suddenly rose, and whispering a few words to her sister, ran out of the room. Dang, that is an awkward moment. Jane could give no reserves from Elizabeth where confidence would give pleasure, and instantly embracing her, acknowledged with the liveliest emotion that she was the happiest creature in the world. That's cute. Jane deserves it. That makes me so happy. That's so great too, because she's finally not living in denial anymore and she can finally be happy. And she's genuinely going to be happy too. Like, she's wise enough to know that this is actually real. 'Tis too much, she added. By far too much. I do not deserve it. Oh, why is not everybody as happy? Elizabeth's congratulations were given with sincerity, a warmth, a delight, which words could not but poorly express. Every sentence of kindness was a fresh source of happiness to Jane. She would not allow herself to stay with her sister, or say half that remained to be said for the present. I must go instantly to my mother, she cried. I would not on any account trifle with her affectionate solicitude, or allow her to hear it from anyone but myself. He is gone to my father already. Oh, Lizzie, to know what I have to relate will give such pleasure to my dear family. How shall I bear so much happiness? She then hastened away to her mother, who had purposely broken up the card party, and was sitting upstairs with Kitty. Elizabeth, who was left by herself, now smiled at the rapidity and ease with which an affair was finally settled that had given them so many previous months of suspense and vexation. And this, she said, is the end of all his friend's anxious circumspection, of all his sister's falsehood and contrivance, the happiest, wisest, most reasonable end. In a few minutes she was joined by Bingley, whose conference with her father had been short and to the purpose. Where is your sister? She said hastily as he opened the door. With my mother upstairs. She will be down in a moment, I dare say. He then shut the door, and coming up to her, claimed the good wishes and affection of a sister. Elizabeth honestly and heartily expressed her delight with the prospect of the relationship. They shook hands with great cordiality. And then, till her sister came down, she had to listen to all he had to say of his own happiness and of Jane's perfections, and in spite of his being a lover, Elizabeth really believed all his expectations of felicity to be rationally founded, because they had for basis the excellent understanding and super excellent disposition of Jane, and a general similarity of feeling and taste between her and himself. It was an evening of no common delight to them all. The satisfaction of Miss Bennet's mind gave a glow of such sweet animation to her face as made her look handsomer than ever. Kitty simpered and smiled. Oh, she's a simp. And hoped her turn was coming soon. I wonder who Kitty would marry. Anybody on the streets. Mrs. Bennet could not give her consent or speak her approbation in terms warm enough to satisfy her feelings, though she talked to Bingley of nothing else for half an hour. And when Mr. Bennet joined them at supper, his voice and manner plainly showed how really happy he was. Not a word, however, passed his lips in allusion to it, till their visitor took his leave for the night. But as soon as he was gone, he turned to his daughter and said, "Jane, I congratulate you. You will be a very happy woman." Jane went to him instantly, kissed him, and thanked him for his goodness. "You are a good girl," he replied. "I have great pleasure in thinking you will be so happily settled. I have not a doubt of your doing very well together. Your tempers are by no means unlike. You are each of you so complying that nothing will ever be resolved on so easy that every servant will cheat you, and so generous that you will always exceed your income." I hope not so. Imprudence or thoughtlessness in money matters would be unpardonable in me. "Exceeding their income, my dear Mr. Bennet," cried his wife. "What are you talking of? Why, he has 4,000 or 5,000 a year, and very likely more." Ay, ay, ay. Then addressing her daughter, "Oh, my dear Jane, I am so happy. I am sure I shan't get a wink of sleep tonight. I knew how it would be. I always said it must be so at last. I was so sure you could not be so beautiful for nothing. I remember as soon as I ever saw him, when he first came to Hertfordshire last year, I thought how likely it was that you should come together. Oh, he is the handsomest young man that was ever seen." Wickham, Lydia were all forgotten. Jane was beyond competition, her favorite child. That's ridiculous. She's crazy. Les, what's up? Come here. You can go take a nap? At the moment, she cared for no others. Her younger sisters soon began to make interest with her for objects of happiness, which she might in future be able to dispense. Mary petitioned for the use of the library at Netherfield, and Kitty begged hard for a few balls there every winter. Bingley, from this time, was of course a daily visitor at Longbourn, coming frequently before breakfast and always remaining till after supper, unless when some barbarous neighbor who could not be enough detested had given him invitation to dinner, which he thought himself obliged to accept. Elizabeth, he is such a golden retriever. Like, that is so sweet. He just wants to be there all the time. Ron and Hermione will need marriage counseling. I mean, I feel like you know that coming pretty early on in the story, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe not. Where am I? Elizabeth had now but little time for conversation with her sister, for while she was present, Jane had no attention to bestow on anyone else. But she found herself considerably useful to both of them in those hours of separation that must sometimes occur. In the absence of Jane, he always attached himself to Elizabeth for the pleasure of talking to her, and when Bingley was gone, Jane constantly sought the same means of relief. "He has made me so happy," she said one evening, "by telling me that he was totally ignorant of my being in town last spring. I had not believed it possible." "I suspected as much," replied Elizabeth. But how did he account for it? It must have been his sister's doing. They were certain no friends to his acquaintance with me, which I cannot wonder at, since he might have chosen so much more advantageously in many respects. But when they see as I trust they will, that their brother is happy with me. They will learn to be contented, and we shall be on good terms again, though we can never be what we once were to each other. This is great because she's learning like good wisdom. What did you send in the Discord? Hold on. Lydia Bennett, stay away from my man. Her man. That is great. Dude, I need all the Pride and Prejudice memes now. Yeah, you can kind of take Kitty out of the book and it doesn't change much, to be completely honest. Kitty's just another annoying sister with a... It does make them even worse parents that they have Kitty and Lydia. They really gave up. Wickham. All right. Let me finish this chapter. That is the most unforgiving speech, said Elizabeth, that I ever heard you utter. Good girl. It would vex me, indeed, to see you again the dupe of Miss Bingley's pretended regard. Would you believe it, Lizzie, that when he went to town last November, he really loved me, and nothing but a persuasion of my being indifferent would have prevented his coming down again? He made a little mistake, to be sure, but it is to the credit of his modesty. This naturally induced a panegyric from Jane on his diffidence and the little value he put on his own good qualities. Elizabeth was pleased to find that he had not betrayed the interference of his friend, for though Jane had the most generous and forgiving heart in the world, she knew it was a circumstance which must be prejudiced against her. I am certainly the most fortunate creature that ever existed, cried Jane. Oh, Lizzie, why am I thus singled from the family, and blessed above them all? If I could but see you as happy, and if there were but such another man for you. If you were to give me 40 such men, I could never be so happy as you, till I have your disposition, your goodness. I can never have your happiness. No, let me shift for myself, and perhaps, if I have very good luck, I may meet another Mr. Collins in time. The situation of affairs in the Longbourn family could not be long a secret. Mrs. Bennet was privileged to whisper it to Mrs. Phillips, and she ventured without any permission to do the same by all her neighbors in Merton. The Bennets were speedily pronounced to be the luckiest family in the world, though only a few weeks before, when Lydia had first run away, they had not been generally proved to be marked out for misfortune. Or they had been generally proved to be marked out for misfortune. Interesting. Jane getting what she deserves. Don't worry, Elizabeth. There's another Mr. Collins out there for you. Elizabeth seriously worries Jane would hold it against Darcy. The Lizzie Bennet diaries cut both Mary and Kitty. They're unnecessary. Mary's just great. Mary's wild. This stuff is wild. You enjoyed Bride and Prejudice. It was so bad it was good. Mary was a cousin, and next live, I'm guessing on Wednesday we'll probably finish it. Maybe Wednesday. It's going to be Wednesday or Thursday. It's one of those two. I don't know which one. I will let you guys know 24 hours in advance. I got to look at my schedule and then send it. Yeah, keep all the good Pride and Prejudice memes coming. Am I too judgmental, or is everyone annoying? An autobiography by me. I need all the Pride and Prejudice memes in the Longbourn channel immediately. And if any of you aren't in the Discord, here's the Discord. No, it probably will. I don't know when it will be. It might be a little earlier. What time? I mean, it's just I'm trying to find a time that works for more people. I think like mornings do work. Putting in a request for Wednesday. Okay. Yeah, I'll do it at a European friendly time. You don't want to miss the next one. The next one's got good stuff in it. Okay, interesting. I need some rest for 56. What's the drama that's gonna happen in 56? Hold on. Let me really quick do a poll. Wednesday or Thursday. I just want to see what you guys say, and then I gotta check my schedule. Wednesday, Thursday. I misspelled Thursday. Thursday. I don't know when, but let's see what people say. Please, Thursday. We're neck and neck. Wednesday's got the lead. I don't know when we'll be able to do it. I genuinely don't know, but I'll look at my schedule. This is like 5% of the vote. Just not too late. Okay, I'll probably do it morning-ish, morning to afternoon-ish. Maybe like noon. Maybe noon might be a good time or something. We'll see. There's 41 votes. Wednesday is getting a little bit. But again, I just have to check my schedule. So Wednesday might not work, but Thursday might work. We'll see. That's actually crazy. This is the one chapter you'll stay up all night for, and it'll F up your life. Okay, so we'll try to do it at a reasonable time. Yeah, sorry for the Aussies here. It's hard to stream for you guys, because otherwise I'm going to be streaming at like 8 at night or wherever it is. So we'll try to work something out. Finally, she's married, though. That happened so fast. I need to think about how fast that happened, because that was just a fast proposal. Like it was good, but is there any other versions that we have of Pride and Prejudice? And I'm going to say this with not thinking about that at all. Not thinking through it that much. The ending at the moment feels slightly rushed. And I'm questioning if that's purposeful on her part, because she has to get to certain things and she can't really like linger on a lot of the details. Like, did she write any other chapters of this that we have? And were her editors like, no, we're going to cut this? Like, did her editors tell you? I know the pacing in her books is always very, very good, but it just seems even snappier right now, which people talk about this all the time with journalistic writing. If you want your writing to be more dramatic, you make it snappier. So maybe she's following that kind of journalistic writing style, which it almost feels more like journalism in this bit. Yes, I'm asking for the extended edition. Darcy and Lizzie are still not engaged. She didn't keep her other drafts. I mean, that's what most writers do. But, you know. She just lingered on multiple Bingley bits so long. I know, it is interesting, because like they're such meandering chapters because nothing happens, but they're just still so snappy to me. Like, one of the reasons why I say it's snappy, because, I guess this is a hard chapter to write, but the Mrs. Bennet chapter, I guess we get some of the information of what was going on in that chapter with Mrs. Bennet just chatting, but like, she's such a good dialogue writer, but we're not getting a ton of dialogue. Maybe that's more so what I mean. like Jane Austen's maybe her best attribute as a writer that I've encountered so far is that she just knows how to write dialogue so well. And most of her character discoveries have been in dialogue up to this point. And it's all through character dialogue and narration. Now, the majority of these meetings are more so her narration. Maybe that's why it feels rushed to me. Because it's like we're not actually sitting into the dialogue anymore. We're just getting the narrator's voice talking about certain things that are happening. She tells you what happened without writing dialogue. It's one of the things about her writing that you don't like. Interesting. Yeah, honestly, it is a fascinating point, Kendrick, too, because maybe I am filling in the gaps for some of the story when I'm doing this now, because I almost know how the conversation goes, which is a good. I mean, we talk about this all the time, but this is like, the sign of a good writer who lets their audience kind of make decisions in the story. Like, we can probably piece that conversation together in our own mind, so it makes it fun for us that we get to like see what was happening. A multitude of words is not what satisfied. It is the right words. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, exposition is faster than showing, but less satisfying sometimes, for sure. That's like a huge part of writing. So I guess maybe that's my thing right now. I'm like sitting here going, usually my favorite bits of her books have been dialogue, and we just didn't get a lot of dialogue in this. We just got a lot of narration, which is fine, again, because it lets me think of the dialogue in my head because I know those characters really well, maybe. But it makes me think. Maybe that's why I thought it felt a little rushed. I don't know. I kind of like that theory that it's almost there to help us like piece the characters' conversations in our head. She lets us in on that. I kind of dig that explanation. Yeah, the Bingley and Jane isn't really the main part of this plot, so that is kind of true too. That is kind of like a subplot. But for me, it's the main plot. Well, not really. But I just love and adore Jane so much. I just want that to be the main plot. Yeah, that's true. We have it's been a long stream of rushed. Apparently chapter 56 is great. I'm pretty pumped for chapter 56. Let's get there. We'll see. It'll be Wednesday or Thursday. Not positive when, but it'll be one of those 2 days probably. Because we want to get to this sooner than later. In the meantime, I have a bunch of essays that I've recorded that I haven't edited. Edited is one of my least favorite words. Edited. It's a hard word to say. But I have to go edit those. So I'm going to go do that actually right now. I'm going to go eat some fruit and go edit those. And then I'll start posting them maybe later tonight or something like that. We'll see. Later tonight or tomorrow morning. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, go enjoy chapter 56 by yourself, and then we'll get to the chapter 56 soon. Maybe, okay, here's a question. Maybe we break it up into 2 different streams. Maybe like Wednesday we do a quick stream of chapter 56, because maybe that one will be like a really deep dive. Is chapter 56 like a big conversational chapter? Meaning, like, can we have a long conversation about it? Maybe we can do like a stream for like 2 hours on chapter 56 and just do a quick read of chapter 56 and talk about it. And then and then Thursday we just do the rest of it. Yeah, I kind of like that. Let's do a little breakdown. Okay, I'm into it. All right, chapter 56. All right, that's the plan. All right, because it seems like such a fun chapter, we'll do that. Maybe, I like that. 56 and 57. That's the plan. So 56 and 57 will probably be Wednesday, I'm guessing. And then the rest of the book, 58 to 61, maybe Thursday. But I will confirm that with you. I'm not positive I can do that. I got to actually look at my schedule again. But this is all light planning. We'll see. It'll be fun, though. You'll be there for the live stream? Excellent. Good. I'm pumped. It's a date, guys. Set it up. Put it on your schedules. Put it on your calendars. And just check out the Discord, because then it'll actually post the stuff in the Discord. I forgot to post it today. But generally, I posted stuff in the Discord. But I'll usually have it like 24 hours at least, or at most 24 hours in advance. Usually like 12-ish hours in advance. So you guys should know. At least just visit the channel. All right, guys, this is excellent. I'm pretty excited for the next chapter because apparently it's a good one. Elizabeth, after the Bennets here, Lydia is finally married to Mr. Wickham. We're dead. We're dead. We survived, but we're dead. Oh, yes, we got so many memes. All right, excellent. I'm going to just go enjoy these memes. Thank you for the memes, guys. Guys, have a great night. Go make some food. Good. I love that. Enjoy your food. Enjoy your dinners. Enjoy your nights. Enjoy your days. And I'll see you when I see you. Later, guys. Wait. I have to end the proper way. I don't want to end the stream yet. Where's OBS?
I'm 27 years old.
There we go.
I've no
Later,
money
guys.
and no prospects. I'm already a burden to... And I'm frightened.